So what, you want us to behave?
Whoa, well, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Bob Miller. This is IRGame, and we're going to be doing our live session today. And just so you're aware, we're quite literally trying out about 15 new things simultaneously. So the odds of this being a magic train wreck are in the 90th percentile range. So look, we welcome you to this, and we're really looking forward to the broadcast today because we got some really great guests. You're going to get to see. This is the cast of characters that we have today that are joining us. So, from our perspective, we got Matt Lee, Ethan, Josh, Stephen, and myself. We are, we got the same amount of facilitators as players today. So we call this the man-to-man version. Where we can each take a person, make them miserable, make it miserable simultaneously. So that's good. And then, but I'm gonna let our guests introduce themselves. So we'll start out. Dean, why don't you go, sir?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Dean. Some of you may know me as DrZoidberg from Helpt, and I've spent the past decade as a service and operations manager at MSPs, but I don't actually know how to do any of the stuff that we're going to cover today.
Perfect. All right, great.
You're the perfect target audience for this, Dean.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm Ray Orsini, CEO and founder of OIT VoIP and MSP Media Network. Was an MSP before and got out, went running, like many of us. And now I just hang and I'm here in all the communities for the lulz. So, and please don't judge me by OIT VoIP and MMN have real security people. Don't judge us by what I do here today, please. So,
Jack, why don't you go?
So on the inverse of what Ray said, I handle our security operations over at OIT VoIP. So if I do anything wrong, you can absolutely judge me. My name is Jack Wagner. Been with OIT since 2021. Started off as a T1, grew to where I am today. I handle a lot of our security operations, cloud infrastructure, stuff like that. So very excited to get started.
All right, Amanda.
Amanda Lachapelle, Chief Operating Officer at B4 Networks and one of the owners along with Bryan. Most of my day-to-day does not necessarily involve this, though I do write policies and workflows and stuff. So I have a general idea of what it should look like, but also very worried. Don't judge me. I'm not the security expert.
It's perfect.
So that means Bryan is. So go ahead, Bryan, go. You're
No, that would be incorrect. I am also not the security expert at B4 Networks. We have staff that take care of that. Bryan Lachapelle at B4 Networks as well. My primary focus is on sales, marketing, and accounting. So, but with that said, my background is IT, and I've been in IT for the better part of 20 plus years, and have a strong influence on our team on how we handle process and procedure with regards to cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, you really do not have to have a technical background, as you'll see as we kind of get into this. This is, and I'm going to give Matt a couple minutes. Which
only two. Only two.
Yeah, well, because I know it'll be 4 or 5. I'm just trying to.
Okay.
But the bottom line is that this really was designed as a hearts and minds episode to kind of let you see the strategy and to push people outside of what they normally think about when they're doing incident response training, right? And exercise. I think you'll see. This rubs in a lot of corners that really aren't really part of a normal tabletop exercise, but it does not require technical expertise to run. So I'm sure you'll enjoy. So Matt and Ethan, why don't you just do your little short blurb about how we got here?
Well, so how we got here was Matt and I, coming up almost 2 years now, I want to say, Matt, when we came up with this, right?
Yeah, it's 2. You're right. Yeah.
2? Yeah, don't go 3. I mean, I'm aged, but I haven't aged that much.
Feels like dog years.
I know. But we were both presenting at a conference, and the conference organizers, TechCon Unplugged, give them a shout out. They were yeah, Paco, they were like, hey, would you two be willing to do a pre-day of something to like give some education to the partners? And you and I were like, what would be valuable? And started kicking around the idea of could we play a game and make it interactive? Because we've all been at those pre-days that have been boring, dry content. And Matt and I both were like, no,
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Exactly. So like then Matt, I think it was your idea, Matt. You were like, hey, you know what really sucked was, your Voldemort.
Voldemort, right. Yeah, so I'll tell that really quickly story and what this is. I'll also say I got to give a shout out to Matt Topper at ConnectWise and also Tony Miller, my VP of Operations. And Dean, it is always operations. In fact, security is operations if you really get down to it. Okay, so that said, we were talking about what types of tabletops exist. And this is after this tabletop was invented, but ultimately we came up with there's the ones that help you do your technical, like operations that go through your own plan, test things out, test scenarios based on that. There's ones that are actually technical and tactical, like, hey, I need to know how to do this. And that's more like backdoors and breaches, other things like that go into the technical skill sets, right? Jack, to kind of to that point, like how I do this. And then what we came up with is there's some that need to get people on board though, bro. Like parts of this is just a hearts and minds understanding of where we're going. It's, if you will, in traction, it's your VTO, right? Your vision traction organizer, right? It's the beginning of what do I want to look like? What am I looking at from an operations perspective? What's good look like? Okay, so what we did was me and Ethan said, let's take my Voldemort. And Voldemort, for anybody that is aware of that, is a company name that I will never speak again. That's why they're called Voldemort now. We acquired a small company. That small company was compromised. Without getting into the very long version of this story, anybody that knows me well has heard this. But during that part, for 18 months, we had people settling with us, suing us. All the clients were compromised through this acquisition of 1,200 endpoints. And so what we wanted to do was talk about what would that have looked like if we weren't a much bigger organization that was able to support a small organization. And we simulated this. We took my worst day, some of the things that happened in it. By the end of it, every employee had quit. Every client had fired us. We had made essentially a $3 million economic impact, right? That it played out as from $1 million acquisition. You're like, how does that even make sense, Matt? Right? And so when you get down to the bottom of it, we then took that game, some of the decisions that would have to be made, and simulated a playable entity to walk you through that and force you to think inwardly about some of the things that might be lacking in your own incident response capabilities. So this is a hearts and minds game, and it really is more about kind of inward thinking and discussion. So hopefully you all are ready. I think this is going to be a fun one. I'm excited about the crew that's here. But then Ethan and I took that. What Ethan contributed is I don't math extremely well. And Ethan helped me make sure all the game logic made sense. Ethan, I think, plugged in some secret Easter eggs that he always uses to cheat and win when we play. I haven't done the actual math.
That could have happened. That I may have said it that way. And what was cool was after you and I worked on this, then we both kind of took it and you and I both kind of innovated and kept changing and improving it. And then that's where, Bob, exactly. But then that's Bob. Why don't you kind of take over from there? Of how
it's your story.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, as they were talking about, it actually was a pre-day that was being at Ryder Boone that Ethan was facilitating, and I actually sat through the physical exercise, and then while I was doing, I says I gotta take this back and run this through my MSP and teach my folks, about this, because it was really clear when you go through it that it pushed the envelope of what your normal thinking is as it relates to incident response, right? Because we've all seen those tactical exercises and they're valuable, but you'll see, I think you guys will see as we play it, this takes you out of that zone completely and makes you think a much broader, holistic sort of view of things. So I took it back, modified it to make it very personalized for my folks, and did a manual playthrough with about 85 of our
which is
employees.
Huge. I want to take a pause for a second. When you're playing this and we're talking about all about teeth, some fictitious dentist, nobody cares. When you are talking about who maybe you might have met as a spouse or dated, or somebody that you're friends with or go to the same church with, like these clients of yours are impersonal. And Bob, what you did was brought it to your team in a way that was very personal, because it was your clients that they actually thought about and had those relationships with, and that kind of emotional connection to. Right, if that makes sense, right? So
that's what I did. I replaced all the generic names with our actual customer names, and I replaced it with our actual revenue streams from those people. And so that when our people started playing the game, they were staring at faces and names that they talk about every day, all day, right? And that certainly amped up the pressure quite a bit. But while we were doing that, Josh Hohbein, who's my chief software architect, we've been working through startups for 20 years. He said, we got this old framework that we built before. I think I could put this thing online in 2 days, right? So he said, it'll be ugly, but it'll work, right? And so I said, well, hell, if you think you can do it over the weekend, do it, and we'll show it to Matt and Ethan and see what they think about it. And so he did. He put it together, and we got it up and running and showed Matt and Ethan. And he says, well, hell, this thing is actually not bad. Even as ugly as the baby is, it still accomplishes the task. And so that's really how it started. And in January, we ran our first online game with people, and the response was like a little crazy, right? Anytime I've been in startups my whole life. So when you build something that people go nuts about, even when it's ugly, you're doing something, right? And that's really how this all kind of started. So, and what you're seeing today is still that first ugly framework. We've got the new framework that's going to get played at the end of the month with some improvements on it. We hope to have the new user interface and more scenarios in it. But you guys are going to see exactly what it looked like, back in January of this year when we kind of started going through this. But that's really how that started, and that's how we got to where we are. So I am going to let Josh know that we want to get started. But here's I'm going to be showing you. I'm sharing my screen with you guys to kind of show you the main screen. But each of you guys are going to have a role, and when it pops up, we'll have a few minutes to talk about that. I'm going to tell Josh to get us going here. Start the game. All right. So in just a second, you're going to see it. We're going to start seeing the first screens. The way this works is it's rounds. You can think of it in terms of rounds. But in reality, what you're going to see is like the dialogue for the first day and how that all goes. So as soon as he kicks us loose, we'll see it. Come on, big boy.
The comments y'all are missing right here, audience, are pretty baller. We should be saying those out loud.
If you see us
also, hey, Harry Torres, what's going on, Alexandria? Stephen Kellogg already said hey to you in the chat. So hi, Stephen, you're already here. Hi, Stephen. Sean tells it all. Def Punk, baller name, by the way. Renaissance IT Consulting.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so our dispatcher receives a call that a single application is not working at Innovative Financial. It's a small investment firm. Innovative Financial relays that their system is acting strange. What? A technician is asked to remote in and take a look at the server that houses the application and see if they can figure out what's going on. The client contact calls back to say, wait a minute, now all our desktops aren't working. I can't get to stuff. And some kind of weird text box is starting to pop up with these instructions about Bitcoin and some ATM thing. Upon access to the suspect server, your technician is presented with what is clearly a ransomware demand note and notifies their service manager. Right? So this is the beginning. You've received a call from a client. They have what is ostensibly ransomware playing out, right? And so let's talk about it, y'all. Maybe I'm a little early on the cutover for the next part of it, but that's okay. What do y'all do?
Okay.
Give me a technical and a non-technical kind of answer from the guys and gals playing this. What do y'all do? What do you do first for this client?
Well, I don't believe that they have ransomware because we have 20 different tools that should have told us first. So
yeah, I'll pause. Actually, you made a perfect example, Dean, of what we try to do in tabletopping, which is say we are in a experience where this has happened and this is the reality. And one of the best things to do about a tabletop is not pretend like it won't happen, because there's still value to be gained in the what if, right, in this conversation. And I won't go into it too terribly long, but it has happened. Dean, what do we do now?
But what I meant by that was that can't be possible, Matt. I have a bunch of tools deployed. This has got to be just a web pop-up. This can't be real.
Okay. We now need to log in. You've made us disrewarded for that statement. We've been kicked out of the game. Kicked us out of the game. It's amazing the AI.
Tell me AI hasn't taken over at this point, right?
All right, y'all. Seriously, what do you do technically and non-technically, please?
So if I'm seeing this happen, the first thing I'm doing is setting a company-wide message, stop, back away from your computers, IT is taking over. That's the point where I say, Jack, help. And Jack does his thing.
Do you mean,
But,
hold on, Ray, let me make sure and ask a clarifying question. Do you mean to your end company? Because remember, this is just one customer. Are you saying you send that out to all those employees? Is that your point?
Yes, I send that out to Innovative Financial. I let them know, stop what you're doing. We're logging in, we're looking, but I need everybody to stop changing anything at all right now.
Okay, so we're getting that in there, right? So we've got people stopped a little bit. What else do we have that's a technical answer, right? And then we'll get into some thoughts on that. Jack or anybody that wants to go on the technical, Brian? Amanda?
I'm going to be looking to determine scope. So
okay.
I'm going to be checking other workstations to see if they have similar pop-ups.
They do. They're all encrypted.
They do. They're all encrypted. Okay, then we're going to check their back-end infrastructure and then see if they're all okay.
Solved.
Maybe there's that one machine, Matt.
There
maybe
is, and it's offline right now. You're good. This is literally going to be some throwback for me, unfortunately. Okay,
I see Matt's choosing violence here. Okay.
The point I want to make. Go ahead, Amanda. Yes, please.
I was just going to say somebody actually said it in the comments, but it's kind of like the first thing that went to my mind, which is. The analogy is probably terrible, but if something like you had an appliance that was on fire, you would unplug it from the electricity, right? Like taking the internet out of the equation, which is
the internet specifically is the
not
right answer.
Power.
Yeah. No, not
power. And the reason not power, who wants to say that? Somebody was starting to say it. Go.
Well, you wouldn't want to disconnect the power because you might destroy evidence and
non-volatile or volatile memory, right? Volatile logs and information that might happen and be rotated. Yeah, so lock her down. And what are we doing when we're doing that, y'all? Does anybody know what the term is when we're doing that?
Isolation.
Yeah, but why? Why are we doing isolation, Brian?
Oh, prevent spread.
Yes, and what is that called?
Containment.
It is. We're containing. We're trying to limit the blast radius, right? But this non-technical answer that we came up with, while communication is important, I actually might argue the positives and negatives of sending a company-wide email about this at this point, just because of threat actor awareness. That one notwithstanding, I do agree with you. It's probably valuable for communication to be made in that way. But that said, what I'm looking for is we're looking to establish legal privilege, and we're looking to establish where that financial aspect's going to come from. Because if it's going to be insurance at the client side, then we may need to bring in insurance resources from them. And we may need to establish legal privilege with our own attorneys or breach counsel as that goes. Okay, we're up on the next piece. Oh my God, we're dealing with this right now and it's going to feel chaotic. It's on purpose. That's how we make this game play this way. You're now receiving calls from multiple clients, all having the same thing happen. Desktops are inaccessible, servers are mass encrypted. Your phones are ringing off the hook and are constantly busy, right? You only have 5 trunks or 20 maybe. If you're using it with some very good VoIP people, you might have tons. But I'm just, okay, anyways, going on. So the dispatcher is unable to keep up with the call volume. Many of you don't have 4 dispatchers. In this case, the size of our MSP has 1, right? Multiple people at each client are reaching out. Now they're all calling. This happens. They panic. You've ever seen that before when something goes wide. It's a real big problem. Right? Multiple voicemails piling up with clients. They're calling your technicians directly. They actually, remember that time you went to a barbecue before and y'all like shared your number or maybe met them to drop off a server or a firewall on a Saturday? They're texting you. They're calling you. They're panicked. They're freaking out. They can't do stuff. They have customers standing at their counter, pissed off, not able to do the things they need to do. They just want to do their business. They just want to move forward. And so, I love you, Steven. Just unplug the phone and leave it. Okay, you just distracted me. It's so good. But the point is, when you think about this, you're getting this playing out as what the hell's going on. It's escalating. What the hell is going on, y'all? Answer. What's going on? We just got every client calling. What is likely? What does Occam's razor say? Right, the most likely answer.
We got friggity frigged ourselves.
We did get friggity frigged. And we did get friggity frigged. I think that's a new term. We're just smiling back away, boys. Just the whole
And one thing to point out too, each of these games you roll different scenarios. So if you look in the top left hand here, our MSP, we don't have published SLAs. We'll get to that. We're not part of a peer group. We don't have enforced overtime. There's no policy on technician wellness. You don't have well-documented procedures, but you do have a documented incident response plan. So in the sense of a role play, that's your MSP right now.
What a role.
Can we pop that IR plan? Can we pop that IR plan open, figure out who we appointed?
Yeah, theoretically you can.
Incident captain.
Oh, it's Lolden.
I feel like you were calling out my MSP. Like, there's no need for that, dude.
Yeah, and Harry Torres says it in the chat, right? He says, I feel like at this point, MSP should be aware of the situation. It's them. And you're right. This is what's going on, right? And in my case with Voldemort, right, they had a credential. They kept treating them like a piggy bank. It was actually the third time that they had come back and ransomed those customers. Can you imagine what that felt like as a victim of that? The third time. They had no care for what I had said I was going to do to fix it. And so ultimately, it is you now, and we need to shift our thinking into what are we going to do with this, right? So it's always Lolden, Def Punk. And I think in 8 seconds, we'll get our next inject here. So give it just a sec. Who's panicking yet if this was really you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. One of the things I didn't say operationally is we establish for major incidents, we have a command structure. So we have the event commander, incident commander, communications lead, and Jack, what's the fourth one?
A tech lead and documentation lead.
A tech lead probably and a documentation lead, yeah.
Curiosity question, how do you guys maintain that?
So when an event pops up, we have certain people on our team, core services engineering team, they're in charge of our infrastructure. They are the ones that will announce this is a major incident. They're the ones that have to finally qualify it, regardless of who brought it up.
I was more on the how do you maintain that list, but we can drive into that.
Oh, we created.
All right, so
leadership
on this team. Okay, we know it's us. We're all in the war room together. We're all now about to figure it out, as you would do, right? You'd rotate all those humans. To your point, Ray, you already called out that you have an operational plan, which is awesome, right? So who's like dealt with a multiple site ransomware incident? Anybody want to speak to that? Even if it's not your causation, has anybody dealt with a multiple site ransomware incident?
I mean, there was one July 3rd a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks for triggering my boy Robert. Amanda?
We actually got called in as a third party by insurance in the case of an MSP not too far from us that got compromised, and it was specifically for the one client. And they basically were calling the MSP, and they couldn't do anything because not only were all their clients compromised, but so were they.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, 100%. And that's the other side of this. Okay, so when you deal with that, it's chaotic, right? Even in that small microcosm, for you being injected in that, it was chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with that incident of ransomware, right? Like the other question I love to ask is like, who's paying for it? We talked about that in this understanding of, is there insurance? So do you as an organization have insurance? I would imagine that's a yes, right? I would hopefully cyber insurance, right? If not, I'm just going to ignore non-shaking heads. That's how I live life. I just do it every day. Second question, how many of you know which of your clients have cyber insurance, right? And have you dealt with any of those cyber insurance and documented? Now, in this case, it's probably you. So we're not, but I just want you to reflect on that in your heart.
Well, and the other thing, Matt, on cyber insurance is not only do they have it, but what kind of policy is it? Is it a rider? Is it a full policy? Like where?
What are they going to cover? It's my tech E&O. That covers all of this, right?
Exactly. Right, Gene. Exactly.
We're done. Oh, we're done. E&O's got us covered. We're out. That's fine. All right, cool. So if you have cyber insurance, what's your next move? What do we do, y'all? Let's assume for this purpose you have cyber insurance.
You make call the insurance company, no? Yeah.
And Ray, you said something amazing that nobody's said on this yet, and I just want to give you Matt points for it. They're not worth anything. You can't cash them in. But basically, you said event versus incident, and I imagine that's some good coaching from Jack or somebody on your team. But it is important to delineate between an event and an incident, what that means to a comm structure, what that means to a plan, how you deal with it. Now, in this case, this is a big old incident, and it's yours, right? You own this. We know this now. All right, we're in the detect phase. We now know. We figured it out. You now know that the likely culprit's something you own. It's probably your RMM, as it was in my case, right? Or to somebody else's point in the audience, your RPA, which has even more power because of its extensibility. And you're not able to respond to clients and breaches yet because or incidents in this case, depending, because you don't know the root cause analysis. The situation is just barely contained. If anything, you've just done exactly what we said. We pulled the wire, but you don't know. Did they have extensibilities into other things? If in RPA, I have access to Office, I have access to identities, I have access to PSAs, I have access to all kinds of things. It gets much, much worse, right? So you finally have cyber insurance. They assign a panel. That panel is comprised of counsel for the breach side of things. You still probably want your own counsel in your own right. Forensics team, that's going to be the people that come in and do the actual forensics. Amanda, kind of to your point, you might have been the team coming in to gather that forensics for someone else to do the analysis on or be the cleanup aspect and restoration. Navigation teams or negotiation teams have been assigned, right? If you guys don't know this, there's negotiation teams to actually do the negotiation. All right. Admin users are flooded with communications like crazy. You've finally been instructed by forensics that your RMM was the one that caused it. Your customers are demanding a reason why nothing's happened. You're like, day 2, and why are they not back up? That's why we pay you, Bryan. That's why we pay you. Why are we not back up? It's day 2, you idiots. Why are you not up? The technicians have been busily disconnecting just sites from the internet just to get the chaos dealt with and trying to deal with the double extortion and data theft, right? If it wasn't already done before. You're dealing with like favorites being dealt with, right? I'm dating a girl or a guy from this one company. We're going to go take care of them, hell or high water. And the lack of your RMM and PSA allow for that, right? You're dealing with just crap. Your trouble ticketing system's offline. It was encrypted as part of that. Ours was, right? It was parallel to it because who does that?
Yikes.
But the point is that all of those things played out. Now, remember, I'll remind everybody that's listening, ours was a much macro system. This was of the acquisition we acquired, not necessarily ours, but of the $1 million MSP we acquired. Okay, legal counsel asks you don't restore machines. Can anybody guess why? It's because we're looking for footholds, persistence, other things that might need to be dealt with before forensically moving back and going back to yesterday when the threat actor has a foothold and is just going to deploy a game. So the point is we're now at this stage where you're just freaking waiting, right?
So I have a question here.
Go.
This is a small MSP, 10 techs.
Yeah.
I imagine they have more than 10 clients. Given that this affects everybody, do you start sending text to some of the clients to be the hands-on? Because how many clients are you going to walk through stuff?
Oh,
Yeah.
you're about to find out.
You're about to find out. You're about, as they say in the hunt, to blank around and throw on my Mr.
I have one other
Rogers hand
question
here, my FAFO. Yeah, go.
At this point where we're kind of sitting and waiting for like a forensics team to tell us what to do, a lot of common BCDR solutions that are out there offer
right
the ability. Well, I was gonna say they offer the ability to virtualize somewhere else. Could I return the client to productivity on different equipment?
Maybe. I love this answer because I'm a cybersecurity guy, and I would say maybe. Because one of the challenges is, what if the threat actor is in that resource when you bring it up? Are you going to bring it up without internet? I go with MSP Media Network, and I would say I would not, probably. Yeah. But you will soon be able to, right? And actually, when is that? It's now day 2, we found out. And to your point, Dean, being able to give someone the ability to reference data and have some lack of chaos in their world in a read-only way, if you can do that effectively, great. But what if it does have internet and they egress data and now you do have that double extortion or does get re-ransomed and things in that nature? Not saying that's the way it is, but yeah, you might do that. I think there might be an operational decision based on the severity of why to do that. Sorry, pulled my string, but great question.
Be valuable in determining when
when is part of that plan, isn't it, Ray? Right. Having a plan on continuity. Someone said it earlier. Okay, I don't want to miss this. Forensics has determined that threat actors deployed ransomware with your RMM. They believe there to be no access prior to the moment, but you're going to basically have to restore all machines. So I missed that. It flew by really quickly. The whole point of this game is to force us to think under pressure, which sucks, and we're going to do that, and I'm going to distract you. Okay. So this is the moment you've been waiting for. Insurance panel has said, you're good to restore. Here's what you have to do. I need you to wipe every machine. Now, for the purposes of simulation, this probably doesn't happen in most ransomwares. But if you're dealing with things like Emotet, definitely had that capability of saying, not time to wipe and reload, boys and girls. This thing's ruined, right? And so here we are with forensics have asked you to pull a copy of volatile memories from all servers. And fortunately, you didn't have it tied to any other locations. I would say if you right now have VPNs with static connections to every single client for some purpose you've architected, I'm going to destroy you with that. And so the point is that they're saying you did not have that in this case. Forensics, after a one-day investigation, determines that there's a persistent foothole and every machine needs to be wiped and reloaded. Bad news is the first server that you try to restore from backup fails. Now, I hope that's not a pattern, but nobody ever has that happen.
All right, Matt.
Go, Bob.
All right, so look, here's the game board, right? And so some of you guys have roles. You'll see it up by your name at the top. Jack, you're actually what's called the tech lead, so you're the one that assigns technical people. Amanda, you're the support lead, so you'll be able to assign admin people. So Jack, I'll tell you, just to get you off the stump as quick as possible, you'll see out to the right on your browser, you see the little plus signs, right? Near the pieces. You have to, in this scenario, you have to restore all the servers before you can start restoring workstation. So just to get through this first round, why don't you put a plus one per line for the first 10 lines just to kind of get us going, and I'll keep it.
But hold on, your CEO needs to give them direction where to start, Bob. You can't just be
I know,
restoring things without talking to people.
Actually,
there's no communication here. There's been no talk about that, and for me, that's the first thing I'm thinking about. Like, have we not like talked to clients, let them know what's going on? Have we done any kind of triage in terms of where we're going to start? Like, that makes me panic that we're just running in different places. I would be looking at my high value clients.
So look, Amanda, that's the point of this exit, right? If you have not planned this out, if you have not thought about this, then this is the mode you're going to be in when this all blows up in your face, right?
And I'm sure all of you have
this
printed
client
out
has
financials, right? I'm sure you do with every client, how many machines they have, what kind of impact they have on your organization, what their restoration path. Like, y'all got that though.
You've got all their asset inventory.
It's in your. Where's that though written down, Matt? Oh, it's probably in your encrypted systems.
It is, and I bet that thing's. What did they say? What's that word? It's fancy for encrypted. Side tangent. While y'all are doing this, and to further distract you, I don't know if y'all have ever seen that. I've encrypted the cat meme or a little comic. It's so good. Talks about polymorphic encryption, and it's like, hey, son, I want you to know about polymorphic encryption. It's where you destroy the data so much it could never be put back together. By the way, the dog just polymorphically encrypted your cat. I apologize. Right. And so it's just, anyways, terrible.
So leadership team, what I will tell you is that although Matt is being helpful, he's doing what he's doing on purpose. So you have to manage through this. You have to manage through this chaos. So he's Bogarting.
I think I have
Bogarting all the time. Cut him off.
What happened with the?
I got the CEO role, and I'm a crazy person that prints things out and laminates them. So I have, it's slightly outdated, but I have a 5-year-old copy of our IR plan laminated.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's something.
It's not encrypted. It's not perfectly up to date.
I will tell you that from playing this stupid game, what we've done is create a doomsday binder, and it has every month it has a current list of our customers, our employees, their phone numbers, the whole 9 yards. So
you got 14 seconds on day one to assign resources. So
he's done that. He's deployed all the tech resources. You did good, Jack. That's what
other key point though is the CEO has a view which talks about how long you've had clients. The CFO role has a view which talks about the money side of things.
Yeah.
MRR project.
And the intention is to force y'all to talk, right? And communicate while I try to maybe stop you.
Dean, you're the CFO in this scenario. You got that role, and your browser should be showing you when the application round comes up again.
We do have to get back to this work. They can figure that out as they lose or win. So what steps would you take to troubleshoot an initial server restoration failure? Like, it failed. All my techie people here, what do you do? What's the next step? We always know what the next step is, don't we?
Try another backup.
Yeah, great. Straight up answer, Brian. Right. That's exactly 100%. The point. What are the next steps if that restoration fails multiple times? What do we do? It's obviously still going to be the same iterants, isn't it, Brian? We're going to try different ways, call the manufacturer, talk to the vendor.
Great.
So what do you do? And this is the question I want to answer right now in this little bit of time we have left. Do you tell the client after that multiple failure, after the first failure? How do you communicate that failure, or do you? And I've had very different answers to this. What are y'all's thoughts? Somebody? Do you tell your client?
One of the most important things to do, right? Like in an MSP, there's a risk pie that we're dividing with our client for money, is letting our client understand when they're in a business continuity lost wage scenario so they can run their IR plan, because they've probably been in a holding pattern up until now waiting for us. So I would want to somehow communicate, like, listen, like, you're screwed. This could take a week. Go your pen and paper plan. Go run your pen and paper plan. Send home all of those people that only work on computers. They're probably not going to be working for the rest of the week. So preserve your lost wages.
You've taken this further than anybody else has, which means you're assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, boys and girls that help run this, you've taken this out to an operational plan that lives in their entity, right? And I don't know that those always exist. If you were to look at some of your people's heads, they may or may not be shaking as we play this. But if those exist, Dean, you're 100% on where the future goes, because it makes it theirs to own. They made these choices. It's theirs to own. And some of those things, now we caused it here, so we get into some challenges. The other thing I wanted to unpack was, are there challenges sometimes with telling somebody after the first failure? It creates stress. They're already angry. They're already down. And let's say, Dean, you don't have one of those plans with your client. Do you tell that client, or do you try again before you tell them? And this is just something I want you to have to understand. You might have to wrestle with.
Well, something I learned from OIT was have some sort of status page that indicates globally what's good, what's bad, and maybe switch your IVR or something to reference. Check this first to get a general sense if you're in the pool of people who are turbo screwed, or if you're in the party bus of people who are not affected.
One of the big questions on this one is, have you ever thought about prioritizing who you're going to help first, right? Because you're going to be overwhelmed. So you've got a client list. If that happened today, would you know who you were going to help first?
Well, that's what I was
a really
talking about
important
triage, because you got to look
priority
at
list.
its priority list is based on, you know, obviously the value of the client, but also how easy it would be to be able to get them back up and running to help mitigate the loss, right? So some people are working mostly in the cloud, and if we're just talking about identity, then that's a very different thing to be managing,
isn't
right?
it, Amanda? Yeah, good call.
All right. So,
side topic. Okay,
for Amanda,
so you
hang on.
have
For Amanda, once servers are restored at a location, you're able to start allocating your admins to help restore workstations. Okay, so anywhere you see down server 0, you're able to allocate personnel.
Yeah, you can
if you're
load up on that potentially. Bob must want y'all to do well. He's giving you lots of loving advice that I've just never.
Well, I'm just telling him how the mechanics work.
Well,
I didn't know how this.
Since you're going the opposite direction, Matt, we need balance, dude.
You think I'm a disruptor in this case? No way. You're not wrong. Okay.
So CEO and CFO, you should be looking at those accounting lists in your browser
and you
to figure
do
out who
have
you're
an
going to
inject.
direct.
So you do have a restoration of innovative financial servers have failed, almost like we were Johnny foreshadowing. And so you're going to have to leave a technician there until the restore succeeds. So you'll notice there's a technician at Innovative Financial. You cannot move. It's already there. So that's all I'm going to call out.
So Jack, you can start allocating, unless you've got direction from somebody, then you
ideally somebody would be telling them where to
so
do.
One of the things we evaluate with each of our clients, and we did this with MSP clients, we did this with ourselves as well, is determining what has to come up, that there's zero question that we can't live without this, and what can stay down, right? Exchange might have to come up or move to your email continuity. Your Spotify or Plex server can go down for a while. So
1 minute and 30 seconds, Jack. That timer's running.
Put anything.
I'm just going to start.
You should, the little
higher
maybe
up.
you should see like a little plus
if
sign
there's
by
any-
the castle icon.
Yeah, and Amanda, you won't
Castle.
until all servers are done.
Okay.
But on the row where all the servers are up, she should be able to assign those little castles, like the second
Oh,
line there.
It's almost like you only have a minute left to actually assign those resources. And if they're all sitting up there, you guys don't get any benefit.
We
from
have
that.
some
That's how I
high
understand the
MRR
simplicity.
clients, but we also have a bunch of state government and utility services.
You
There you
even
go.
care about those
Hey,
things?
now
Those
we
state
go.
government and utility services pay us less,
Wow.
but that's going to screw the
Ding.
entire area, and we're
Yeah.
totally going out of business.
I'm looking at
Jack-
healthcare with 800 plus sites. I'm paying my staff. So
Jack, don't leave any of those texts on the
No,
side.
Alexandria, Amanda's crushing
Yeah,
it
I'm not.
for the women of the channel, not just
deal.
living
Yeah.
it, representing
I
it. She's
don't
crushing
know
it.
where this is supposed to be adding, and it's not working. So this is not.
You should have a plus sign, Amanda, like at future resources where you could start to put the rooks.
No plus sign.
What is Amanda's role?
Support lead.
Support lead
Just- yeah.
is what it was. But
And you have the game up pulled up in a different browser.
Yep.
I took it from her real quick because I'm going to get her. Going.
Okay.
Right.
Those right there is what they should look like.
Oh, hold on. I'll come back to the thing because I was looking here.
You won't have it now. He took the role away.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm going to hand it back to you. So
And then
just
when you
be ready.
refresh, you'll have it. Yeah. Or whatever the mechanism is. Okay. The chaos and the anger is intended. You can just point it right at Bob, not Matt. Okay. So we have medical clients. And guess what? Medical clients come with this understanding that they're doing business with the United States government in our world, and they fall under the Health Information or HIPAA or HIPAA. Portability and Accountability Act. Is that it? Yeah. Am I right?
Yeah, maybe.
Wrong. Okay. So who and how do we notify for HIPAA data exposures, right? Is that us? You know, Bob, you make this very poignantly accurate in your definition, but who's responsible for a data exposure for HIPAA if they believe there's been third-party egress or access of data?
Well, can I throw a curveball here?
Yeah.
HIPAA requirements for
100%,
notification is 60 days. I think we should still be focusing on servers bringing.
And like,
back
how
up.
big was the hippo that escaped?
A female hippo, right? Is that?
Uh-oh.
Right. Does she
We
have
lost,
children?
we lost Fiona.
Oh no,
Yeah,
Fiona got out.
The one thing that's important for everybody to know that's watching this live stream, right, is that if you have customers that have HIPAA data, ultimately it's that customer who has authorship and ownership of that data, their responsibility to report anything related to HIPAA, right? So that sometimes gets confused, and managed service providers don't really know. And the point is that it's their compliance that they have to fulfill.
Yeah.
You're there to support them, but they're the ones that have to actually report these things.
And Ray, I think you actually were I just want to give you another point for this presence of mind right now. You're already 2 points, bro. It's ridiculous, but you might get a mug. It's like going to the arcade, though, right? You got to get like 10.
I'm done. I won. I'm done. I'm out.
but being present and aware of the understanding of day 4 with day 60 on the clock for them, regardless who it is, does allow you to focus and show some good leadership skills, man. I'd say very cool. That's very good.
Okay. I would absolutely notify the clients that they're going to have these requirements.
That there may be some things to provide data to Bob's point. Right. Now, in this case, it was your employee. Your employee took a drive home, tried to make life easier. They actually lost it. It wasn't encrypted. And now they've exposed a ton of private health information. In fact, 1.2 million patient records on this drive. And so it was your employee. How do you deal with this if you have an employee that has made this decision and created this, where now you might not be the reporting entity, but you might certainly be the accountable entity in some cases? So what's the thoughts?
How much do I like this employee?
It's your cousin's son, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
So you can't fire the employee on the spot. You need him around because there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered. First thing, just like with the breach, stop what you're doing. Unplug the drive, stop touching it. Yes, with the incident. I apologize. Bad word. Stop with the drive, bring it right back to the office. Don't do a single thing else. And then we go from there. And then Jack, take the hard drive.
I'd also just want to say too, you got to be thinking from I guess at least in Canada, you have to be thinking from an HR perspective. This is definitely a for-cause situation. And you need to be making sure that you're getting whoever's involved in the investigation at that point to give you the hard facts before you do anything, because you can't just be going around firing somebody when you get to that point without having that clearly, because you don't even know if you're going to end up having any other legal ramifications from it. So you need to have that in place.
Just for that, Amanda, y'all get like one unstopped round to go focus. That answer is so good. I'm not even injecting. I'm done. just
answer.
Okay, I'll jump in instead.
All right, Amanda. Yeah,
I'll jump in with some. So I'll jump in with some help. If you haven't noticed, there is a scroll bar, so you guys have way more than these 5 clients you're seeing on screen.
Yeah, that's
wow.
Right. Yeah, there's a scroll bar here. So
Bob usually waits till about round 8 to say that.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the 250 sites. You got that healthcare. You got 80. You got 125.
You can see all of these.
I love Crab Consultings. Yeah. Do I own an RV or a plane or a yacht that I can just hide on? You know what, Crab?
If you roll that's me. I'm like, can I run away? Like,
if you roll above a 5, you're in, bro. You can just go roll it out. If you get above a 5, I'm being generous. Yeah.
Amanda, you should see a little plus sign by the little castle on your web.
It's not doing anything, but I see the plus sign.
Well, are you on the future resource one?
Mm-hmm.
The second line up there, you don't get a plus sign. Is that what
Can she share her screen, Bob?
A sign.
I think so.
Well, now she's out of resources at this point to assign, yeah?
No, she's not.
Oh, you can still assign the rooks.
She's support.
Yeah, she's support. So
Jack's tech lead. She's support lead.
I'm looking through and I'm
I'll
just
take it back real quick.
Well, I can tell you where I would put it.
Well, why don't you do that? That'd be good.
That'll work for now.
I'd probably go with the Pioneer Clinic.
Well, there's still 2 servers down there, so that's not one you can do, right? You see that column?
Oh, okay, so it's got to be the servers. Servers are all up.
All the servers up. Yes, all the servers are up. Then you can.
And if you work
Universal Law Group, because I don't want lawyers down longer than they need to be.
Very good. I like that.
I mean, God save the attorneys of the world.
That's CYA because of your employee that took the hard drive. That's what make them happy.
I put them all there for now, Amanda.
Sector 1 for sure.
Who was that?
The public sector. Oh, what was that? Hold on. Universal public sector.
Just so you know, I'm seeing on my screen all of the rooks are assigned to Universal Law Group.
Yeah,
I'm moving them.
Okay, thank you.
It lets you move them. You're calling your technician and telling him to turn the other way.
They're still en route.
Hang up right now.
How does Dynamic Wellness have 800 sites and only 125 employees? That sounds like money laundering.
I have a question about people going on
car washes
in this game. So like thinking in terms of like a real scenario, on sites are my highest opportunity cost engagement. I can't do something else while I'm on site. So if the people who are going on site are there for hearts and minds, can I send non-technical employees on site?
You can, but you know what? I'm not going to say anything. You sure can. You sure can, Dean. Okay, so discuss amongst yourselves and answer these questions. Let's have this conversation. Under what circumstances would we ever pay a ransom, right? Like everybody says, I'll never pay a ransom. But under what circumstances do we pay a ransom? Let's go. Anybody have any ideas?
When you don't have
I want to ask real quick.
Yeah.
You had
Amanda's
a
right.
You had a bank in there.
Yeah.
Does the bank have notification requirements that are shorter than those 60 days?
It's a great point. It depends, right? Where that data is and what data it is, right? Because a lot of those systems are third-party systems for the bank themselves, right? So they're using third parties like Fiserv and others in that regard. So maybe, but great side tangent that we could dig into. But if we do, we can't answer these questions. So we're going to dig into this. All right. So under what circumstance do we pay a ransom? And Amanda, you started to say it. If we don't have backups, right?
Yeah.
You were heading down that path. That when you are physically forced to. Okay, what else? Let's anybody else think of one? I know one that we've done.
The cost of paying the ransom would be less than what they're going to lose
unfortunately
over the course of the next week.
Yeah, sometimes that's the reason, man, and we're just straight up speaking to it right now. That is the reason.
What if you have backups, but the data has been exfiltrated and they have proof that it's been exfiltrated?
Yeah, that's another one. Double extortion, right? That's the reason. In fact, in my case, when this actually happened, it was 2019, but before real double extortion started to really play out in late 2019. Okay, so what are the problems with paying the ransom? Does anybody know? And nobody that's from the
that's a lot of ransom.
Are super, ethical and will always do exactly what they say.
Oh, 100%. Never seen them fail. They always do it right. They're good.
I have no idea how to buy Bitcoin.
Sure. What's the reason this might be a problem in the United States? Anybody?
Well, you have restrictions on when you can pay and when you can't pay.
Why?
Right? Aren't there laws that say you cannot pay in certain situations for certain?
Yeah, it's also like based on where the people who are having the ransomware are located too, right? So if they're in a country where there's, I don't know, embargoes or whatever the right word is.
That's exactly it. It's OFAC. Yeah. It's the Office of Foreign Asset Control. In the United
100%.
States, if you pay an actor that is on the OFAC list, you could be committing a felony and treason in its own right.
Yep.
There's some very interesting things. It's just like paying a terrorist. It is just like paying someone that is on that controlled list. That's why you can't send money to North Korea when you're using Western Union. Ask me how I know.
I have another concern here from a business perspective.
Yeah.
If you have the incident with your access with
Alex
several clients, with several clients, then that ransom could be not one ransom. It could be 15, 20, 300 ransoms. Yeah. That's a big nugget.
I will tell her myself. I had to pay the ransom in our case a few times. We had 6 different instances where we did. Some of them were backup related, and some of them were because we needed the forensics to prove that the actor was the actor. And so we needed the key to get some of that stuff that had been encrypted. And so we did end up paying for, I think it was a $26,000 key just for one server to be able to do the proof that they had been encrypted 3 times, not just once. It was the RMM server. So oversharing a smidge. But okay, the restore of dynamic wellness with HIPAA data was at the Tex house. It also has been fired. You have gone through Amanda's processes in this short day and a half, and I've decided that the employee has violated all things. And I did use processes. I hope I did that properly for y'all.
That was very nice. That was very nice.
Thank you. I tried. Very good. Day fired. Sounds right. MSP Media Network says. It's so good. All right. So on with it.
So do I assign somebody?
It looks like Bob
you tell me.
Rights.
Well, no, you tell me where to go.
I think that honestly, it's got to be the CEO that does the firing in that case, if not an administrator, which would be the HR person, but maybe both involved in it.
Well, see, the other thing too is we got Jack and Amanda signing, but we need to get the CFO and the CEO. You guys need to be telling these people where to go, or you're just letting the
where's the money
make the decision for you. Come on.
Day 6, you still have money in the kitty, but day 14, you may not be able to pay people's pay.
Who is the CFO?
Yeah. Who's the one with the money? All about the money.
You're the CFO. Who's the CEO?
Oh, no.
I have CEO.
Ray. Yeah, Ray is the CFO.
Oh, I got money. Okay.
Hey,
I'm getting on the jet now.
Always a good thing to
chat.
Always a good thing to figure
out.
Why do you think I was asking, do we own a jet?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I'm going to be looking at what's the biggest financial risk to the MSP, because if we can't survive, they can't survive. Honestly.
So on your screen, you should see the MRR for the clients that you're supporting.
I think it's dynamic wellness, Ray.
Dynamic wellness, and that's why the 800 sites.
Can we put Alex Weintraub's last comment up for me, please? AW or Alex Weintraub is an incident responder, and he put in the comment. He said there are ways to pay sanctioned ransomware in extenuating situations. The FBI can help, and ultimately what he's saying is go through a professional they'll guide you through the process. That's what ours was Coveware, but there's those type of players that help with that. I think it was Speartip and Coveware, but
I don't think anybody here said call the FBI, even though we have retired FBI in the chat. So
yeah, we have
still present.
FBI in the chat who doesn't want your call. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to totally trigger Darren, actually. I digress. I love being able to do this asynchronously. It's beautiful.
All right, so dynamic wellness that's got to be the biggest financial hit in my opinion.
And then national healthcare is the other big one.
Yeah.
But the thing that I go back to is I'm assuming that we're going to get through this, and at some point afterwards, this is going to be in the papers and all those public utilities we support as well. Like,
my man's still preaching it.
Yeah.
That's going to just kill our ability to get new business in the future.
That's 100% part of this, part of what you run into, right? About the priority, because if you've got critical infrastructure as part of your client base, how do you prioritize those, and where do you prioritize?
And
you're not wrong about the legal firms or the health firms.
All right, so
Ray, what's our
we're gonna
rainy
discuss
day fund?
amongst
Do we have any
ourselves.
cash?
I'm going to keep us off topic and frustrate everyone. So a master services agreement tells the customer about our terms. Now, y'all do not have SLAs in them, but one of the things that we think about, and for any of my enterprise serving humans, even hearing this are going to be triggered, but as an MSP, having an MSA without SLAs in it specific to these types of things might actually be more mature in some cases. And one of the things we want to talk about is, do you define time intervals in your SLAs for things like exigent circumstances? If you are going to put times in, do you put in these exigent circumstance type situations in the way you deal with them, or are you just going to be hung by your own agreements where even if you tried to sue them for the pay that they didn't give you, you don't get it? Ask me.
I'm a big fan of only declaring response times.
Not solve times, right? Like the ability to show operational functionality of being able to respond to you. But let's just even deal with that, Dean. Right now, you have no ticket system. You have no email system. You have no ability to manage your people. What is definable response time? How does one document response time according to those SLAs? And I think the point I'm trying to make is really just asking the audience here to focus on how you structure for these types of scenarios. Another thing that I love to ask about is, are you going to bill for this time? Now, you caused it here, so it's likely you're not. But imagine if it was their incident. Do you bill for those hours? Are you going to be able to charge according to your SLA? Does it change those SLAs when they're in an incident response? Do they have 2 weeks? Yeah.
Pure operations for a minute here. Am I going to bill for it? Yes. Am I going to invoice for it? Probably not.
I love you so much, man. We got to stop meeting like this, bro. People are going to start talking. It's a real problem. Yeah, 100%. 100%. But continue, y'all. What do we do right now, Amanda?
I wouldn't put that in our agreement, just because, like Dean said, the response time is more the important thing. If you're going through an incident like this, I don't know, you want to get back up and running, but you also want to have the communication level that you need. And I think the communication is like key.
Johnny foreshadowing, Amanda. You get a Matt point. That's 100% accurate. Again, these are only cashable in with Bob at the Bob Company store. So
but I mean, I want to say the communication is almost the most integral part of it, because you have to weigh the line between being accountable and giving people the information they need without necessarily claiming fault, so that you get more of a situation.
Last piece before we move on. Are your MSAs and SLAs reviewed by an attorney who specializes in your industry? Do you have someone that looks at it and says, yeah, that'll hold? And I
bought it on LegalZoom.
Yeah.
Fiverr.
It will be now.
I got mine on Reddit, so Reddit has a copy. We're good.
Oh God, we're good. It's already been peer voted.
Yeah,
peer approved on Reddit by anonymous humans. Winning.
So allocation time, Amanda. Where do you want to put these at? Where do you want to put your admins? Universal health, I heard someone say before.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, so universal public sector, state government, we don't know what kind of do you know what kind of stuff they service? Are we talking gas, electric? Are we talking code enforcement? Because they can screw themselves.
Yeah.
So the beef with code enforcement,
city administration.
I'll share my story later.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, Amanda.
I'm going through here, and I'm going and looking at anything that's to the comments before, anything that's health. So universal, I can only touch the ones that are no longer down, correct?
Where the servers are down, no longer down. That's correct.
And the reason
Well,
for
the
that is if
question-
you don't have a server up, you can't join Azure Active Directory, right? Azure AD would be delineable. But
So
So
universal.
I'm gonna pull a Matt real quick, and I'm gonna ask my
Do
support
it.
lead which of these clients does she recommend, because she's dealing with them on a regular basis. She might know
Accurate.
them better than I would as a CFO.
Very
that may
good.
be a true statement for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Collaborative
mean,
I don't
statement.
know. It sounds like you're just trying to skirt responsibility. With
Yes,
that.
of course. I'm going to jet. Orsini Air, we're out, dude.
Oh, Crab Consulting asks, Ray, how much cash do we have on hand? Boy, that becomes a problem when you get later in these days, I bet, if you aren't getting people paid. In some cases, our partners wouldn't
my
pay
time,
us.
I got to be assigning people. You got to give people a dynamic wellness, a nice
Man,
time.
they're cutting through that mat.
Yeah.
That's good.
I want dynamic wellness. I want, I'm going through the list. It's really like condensed, so you have to go through. Do we have people at the law groups? I don't know if I see anybody here on my screen.
We have Universal Law Group down, 0 servers, 14 workstations.
Oh, there is Degley. Oh,
Yeah.
Degley is a pro at this, though, bro. He's
Yeah.
a pro.
Can we phone a friend? Can we?
Yeah, sure.
If
Somebody
you
wants
guys
to-
were part of a peer group, yes, but you've chosen to.
Oh, you've chosen
Oh.
self-selectedly not to have peers you
that's
talk to
right,
on a
yeah.
regular basis.
we currently
Hey,
have a
Josh,
lot
one
of
point for digging in hard right there, bro. I just want you to know it's one Matt point.
I don't see anything at Progressive Law.
Progressive Law is 3 servers down. You wouldn't be able to anyway.
Yeah.
So you have innovative resources, oil and gas. Because of the fact that they're in oil and gas, I would treat that like critical infrastructure, and they have 0 servers down.
I got that one. Let's go ahead with that.
And this is where the context would matter, right? What if they're oil and gas, but they're actually just on discovery, and that's 5-year
Like
project stuff versus delivery,
Yeah.
right? So you can see that
Right.
being delineable. Amanda
Which
would
is-
need to help you with that as a
Exactly, which is what
pseudo.
support
Do we have
would
like
know.
any account
So I can invent
managers?
whatever I
on
want,
staff?
right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay, good.
At least within this game master's willing.
The other thing this points out, though, is
Go ahead, Steve.
having that prioritized list ahead
Yeah.
of time.
And it's
before you-
defensible. Even if it's wrong, it's defensible.
But trying to do it during the incident is insanity.
Not a good idea.
It is.
Yeah.
I would
right.
like to say the window needs to be wider so I can see more clients at once. You can see, like,
Nope,
That's
that's
part
on
of
purpose.
design.
Do we
It's part
do
of
we have
design.
any
Yeah.
sort of like account
Okay, so-
manager?
I took a
I'm going to
screenshot.
keep
so-
going. All right.
salesperson
So
on staff?
discuss amongst yourselves this statement. Our techs are still busy constantly, right? You're now dealing with that, and communication with the customer base has been spotty. To Amanda's point earlier about how critical it is. Who has dealt with a situation where your techs are all swamped, a Brent nightmare, and you can't respond to inquiries? Server 2012, Nick going down. Sorry, just kidding. Who's dealt with this before? Let's go.
Where you can't determine priorities. Is that was
Where
the
you're
question?
just so
we
overwhelmed that
have-
you can't. Yeah.
we had an incident at one of our clients just right after we took over them, and the support team all the time. It's a mix of there was nobody to talk to them, but also they're so under the pressure of dealing with
Yep.
what's
That they're
going on.
fighty and angry. Yep.
And I feel like that's the opportunity to have really good communication between. To Ray's point of what he was saying earlier of having somebody who's like appointed in that role to do that, but also as a CEO, something that I would probably get involved in, like Bryan would get involved in terms of communicating with the client.
Well, and let's tackle this. Jack, you had said, and I'm going to make you speak now, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah,
But
that's
Jack, you had said earlier about comms and having comm plans, and Ray had alluded to the fact that you have a escalatory kind of like different type of event manager and all that. How do you handle communications in a situation like this? What's the best practice?
So the biggest thing is that we want to standardize a response and work with anybody that's handling communications to make sure they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We don't want to like make sure. We want to make sure that nobody is
Garrett, I love you.
misconstruing the situation. Yeah, Garrett's our.
He's our
Garrett's
technical
our-
services manager. He's well trained.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah,
one of the things I'll add to that, and just for the essence of time, is I think in my mind, perfect is everyone knows to reference a comms page or an incident page, and everybody that takes a call takes in and says, "Hey, we have that on our incident page. Please read. It'll be updated quite frequently and say the time." And even if that updated every day or every 2 hours or every 4 hours or every whatever it is on the cadence is no news to report, customers are still being restored. We will let you know based on queue and priority is an update. And I think the point is, to your real point, Jack, is getting congruity in that is extremely valuable. And
The scrap consulting also said something about having like the non-technical people in your organization involved in and being able to answer questions, even to point people to the right place so that it's a human doing it. I like that idea. I wrote that one down.
As long as they have the right.
What you want to do though is give them comms cards.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You want them to have what to say. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So that's what I was going to say. We do that when there's a major incident. That's the incident commander's job to.
Amen, brother.
The entire staff knows. Do not say anything. The incident commander will craft the messages.
Right.
The communications lead's the one putting it out, and they every message has when to expect the next message.
Yeah, that's so good.
Every single one.
Yeah. I actually had a law a law office that was their website had been compromised for a DBD or a drive-by download, and I found it in their infrastructure, and I called them, and the girl that answers the front desk goes, "Hey, yeah," and I said, "Yeah, I'm a security researcher. Someone's attacking me with this, website, and oh my God, we're in the middle of a breach right now. In fact, everybody's back in the back room. Do you want me to transfer you?" I'm like, "No, I probably think that'd be quite not well received. So no, I just want to tell you, it's not solved anyways." But the point is, they weren't giving comms cards. Not just straight up say breach to every customer. Might call in.
Amanda, where you want them?
Universal Law Group.
Got it.
I love Degley's just nihilism about the situation right now.
He's like, "It's Kobayashi Maru. You're screwed."
Say that again, Amanda. I couldn't hear you.
Dynamic shipping.
Dynamic shipping. Okay.
I'm
gonna put two. They can clear 2 workstations around, so I'm putting 2 there on each one. All right.
Yeah, and then global hauling as well.
Yeah, how close is it to a start of a month? Great question, Crab Consulting.
Well, we're 8 days in, and as a CEO, I'm starting to get a little freaked out talking to the CFO about getting paid.
Bro,
the next billing cycle. So are we at July 1st where I've got 30 days to panic?
As the CFO, I've already contacted our financial contacts to get lines of credit in place.
That's awesome. Before this or during this, you mean? Because if so,
I had the relationship prior to this, and during this
is that a real life answer, Ray? In which case,
that is a real life answer. Yes,
it's real life. And that is important. You do need to think about cash flow, Dean. In our case, right? Some customers said, "I'm not paying you till this is done. You bring me back to whole, and if I even make it, I might consider paying you during this time." That's a cash flow challenge.
Which tax.
Amanda, just want to make you aware we have municipal services, 0 servers down, 52 workstations down.
Let's go with that.
So that's what I'm trying to prioritize right now. Is I think all of our servers should be back up for the most part. There's one, I think, with 2 that still need to come up, but now I'm trying to prioritize workstations.
Yes, that's right. Because your techs can do 4 workstations around. The admins can do 2.
How many more techs do I have that I can assign right now? Premier Medical.
You're out.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Our techs have been under an extreme stress now, right? We're day 8, like a day 8, not day, 5 days here and then day 8, no stop, no break, 24/7, every minute, continually thinking about it, home and stressed, family life sucks, time at work sucks. People are there, they don't own it. They're not you. They're just there. They're getting kicked in the teeth over it. They're being told how horrible they are. What are the key signs to look out for when it comes to burnout?
This is why I'm asking. This is why I'm pinging meeting daily with Amanda at the end of the day and Jack to find out how the teams are doing.
Yeah,
I actually would be out on the floor too, walking around and just checking in with people and making sure that they have what they need and that they don't have any questions that I could be helping, asking them what the mood is of the people they're talking to, and just in general, even if I know the information. No, I would not do a pizza party, by the way. That's the worst thing I would say. And that's different. You don't do that as the solve. You do that as a cherry on top. But in general, just that communication where you're able to hear them out, where they can vent, where they're not having to be client facing is important.
Yeah, 100%. And
making sure they're eating more than candy bars.
Well, I was going to say Maslow's hierarchy is a good start, right? Yeah, Maslow's is a good start. Make them feel sheltered. Make them feel protected, make them have food, make sure they're taken care and sleep. Those things matter. Okay.
Yeah. Brittany
I'd
also
be pinging this.
Just frame photos of Matt Lee. Yeah, heck yeah, though. You're on the right point.
I will say I'd be pinging the CEO to make sure they're putting out daily messages to the staff, letting them know what to expect,
monitoring for it too.
Let them know how much longer we have of this, or what we're, is this the long term?
How do you manage technical load here, right? Because now you're going to have certain people, just ask me how I know, that are willing to put everything on their shoulders, that don't care, that are not showing the obvious signs outwardly, but probably live with this the rest of their life. Like, if I'm honest. And so, how do you balance that? because the need says let that guy or gal hypothetically continue, but the reality says that probably not okay. Right?
No,
Like
we've
there's
been
some
in this
downside.
with downtime before, and we have a part of our policy to rotate people in and out. It's important to keep somebody on for continuity, but at a certain point where it's a breaking point for people, so we have them switch out in the case of downtime. So I would be looking at things that way as well, and making sure that they're not the only ones dealing with something always. If that makes sense.
Like, I know we're not in a peer group, but like I've got to have at least one other MSP friend. Could I just promise them insane amounts of money later? Lend me a few people.
We're gonna get into that. It's like watching one of those infomercials, and we're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
Let me contribute one thing. After going through this,
Right
the one
here,
thing
yeah.
I did and adjusted our policies is that I bring in third-party help right off the bat on this thing. I work through the incident response folks and get somebody in, and I save my people as much as possible for when all of this is finally restored, because when it's all over with, you got to start building trust with your customers again. If your people are so zapped that they can't even see straight, then you really haven't gained anything. And by the way, from a reimbursement standpoint, you can be reimbursed for people you bring in to help you. You're not going to get reimbursed for people that are yours that you.
Ask me how I know. Yeah.
National health care. The time's going. I can't ignore it.
Well, and you lost 2 technicians, unfortunately.
I saw that.
They quit. And this is reality. As we went through this, people said no. Nope.
You want to assign, Amanda? You want to assign me to that? I mean, I can walk around and restore desktops. So that can't be that hard, right?
I think you have to assign yourself, Dean.
And then Premier Medical.
All right.
And did you hear the first one, which was dynamic wellness or national healthcare? Sorry.
That's the one I just got down at the bottom. National healthcare. Yeah. And
Right.
then what was your second one?
Was Premier Medical.
Also, Dean, you did assign yourself to the site, right? Hey, congratulations, you're on the site. You're the purpose of role playing. You now can't help. You're not at the office. You don't get to see any of your financials. You can't give any direction. You're siloed at that site.
It's
so
because I'm hiding in my car in the parking lot.
Well, to Dean's point, as long as comms are handled and the leads are taking handling things, Amanda's keeping track of what's going on, Jack's taking care of the technical side, all these sites that are already resolved, I'm starting to send somebody in executive management to schedule time at least to do some of the this is the aftermath, how can we help?
I don't need anybody else to assign, right?
We're pretty clear. I put 2 on Premier Medical and 2 on Universal Health.
Okay.
And I put the extra one I went ahead and put on Universal Law Group because they only have 4 down, and we could actually get them
done.
Almost in 2 rounds. We could get them completely out. Right.
Looking at that though, you're already down 2 techs. With that, you already had to fire 1, so you started with 10. You're down to 6 now. I guess in the CEO role, do you think where's the best spot for him? Is it at the clients or is it in the office helping with the remainder of the team?
I love where Brittany's thinking. That was what I was thinking too. I don't know. I kind of feel like at this point here, the team is the absolute most important part because you can't get any of this stuff solved. And I mean, whether or not you're going to get to keep the clients is not something that is known right now. Just being able to solve the situation in front of us, that's where my head would be at.
I want Amanda on my team.
Yes.
Just straight up. Yep.
Can't have her.
That's Brian's instead response. No.
It's a response. Okay, so now we're talking about when you're dealing with an MSA, and one of the things that we came out before with this conversation is that you might need to have things in there for this. But when it comes to your statement of work and what you're dealing with the clients, can you imagine how much work this was? I paid overtime. Somebody said we got that sweet OT money, right, in the chat. It was actually Garrett again. But the point is that, we did that. We paid overtime. We had people fly from different states to come help out. We added that over. And guess what? First party payments are not always paid. In fact, our $1.28 million insurance claim, $1 million of it was denied. We got $280,000 of that. We spent $1 million on a company that became nothing, which meant we had $1 million loss operationally, $1 million we spent on someone, and $1 million in opportunity cost of somebody we could have bought that wasn't a turd. And so, unfortunately, that's kind of where we were from that perspective. So, okay, what are the key things to think about? What kind of elements should be in your MSA around Incident response. Let's go. Just after today's discussion so far, let's talk about it. What do we need?
Limited liability.
Yeah, limited liability of what's causing what's there. Sure, that's important. What else?
Clear indications about that, the whole idea of response time versus resolution time.
And maybe
RPO
exigent
and
response
RTO.
time, right? Like when we're in this type of scenario, here's what we will be doing.
Yeah, like you could talk about that website. You could talk about like what you could usually expect. I think a lot of our vendors do that really well, where they post, this is our downtime. So that, not that they're saying, downtime is going to happen right now, but like, this is where you could go.
So Yeah, and Beggs actually is on here now. I saw his chat, just Patrick Beggs from ConnectWise. They have that. That's their whole point. We have that. Here's what's going on with us. Ray, I imagine you have that. Where you're like, hey, this is what we got going on. And put that in there.
How about requiring clients to have insurance? Cyber liability insurance of their own?
I'm out. Brian, you take over. Here's the mic. Done.
I think it's important these days for every client to have their own insurance, so that their own insurance will cover their losses.
Yeah, and in this case, it probably wouldn't, right? That would be a subrogable loss. You're the one that's responsible, and ultimately, they're going to probably control the incident. But that said, if it was theirs, you would have clear ability to get paid. And what might you want in your incident plan for that client that lets you get paid, Brian?
Sorry?
Well, in this case, if they have insurance and the insurance is going to pay for hours of restoration that could be done, what are the kind of things you might want? There might be things of saying, here's what our hourly rate is for us doing restorations of machines as a result of a client-caused incident. Right? You could have those things where you start playing out and that kind of stuff. So I know there's some things, and each state will matter, and each country you're in may matter on what your longevity of that play is, but just something to be thinking about.
Wouldn't I also want fee in there?
Wouldn't I also want something that documented as an MSP how I handle all the bits of risk the client chooses to abdicate?
You almost mean like a shared responsibility matrix and a risk register?
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking if I'm doing my QBRs and I'm saying, hey, you need this solution.
And there's Patrick Beggs answering it, right? Very good. Yep. Yes, Beggs, 100%. Traceability matrix with MSA mapped to different event types to just give explanatory type events and things that we'd have. And also couple that with an SRM and a risk register, to your point, Dean, of like, you chose this and this is something you own. Might be very defensible for you, but also you might have to decide in that statement when you let that client go. Like, where does that risk register have to get to before you go? Yeah. Now, this case, it's caused by us, but you are speaking towards that point when it is caused by them, right? Or
one of the things I think people should have too is a business continuity plan, in the sense that when you're down, you should have processes and procedures for manual. Like, how are we going to handle not like, yes, we protect ourselves and we set everything up so we're never breached in the first place, but it's going to happen. And when it happens, here's what we're going to fall back on. And having that in your MSA might be a good idea, saying that you're responsible for putting in place some form of continuity plan when the inevitable happens.
And if not, then this is the outcome and decision tree, right? Like, at least stating those things.
Because a lot of dollars could be mitigated if they just had manual processes.
And you got to be pushy, man.
You got to be pushy with asking that question too, because business owners will hand wave that away. How long could you have no internet for? Oh, I'd be fine for weeks, but then when it happens after an hour, they're $250,000 in the hole already.
What do you think?
Which is why you're documenting.
Good at.
I'm out of time here. Premier Medical and Dynamic Wellness still.
Got a minute.
I got national.
We just fire them
national
as
health
clients?
care,
Yeah, national healthcare too.
dynamic wellness. I got that one.
Poor Bob's been pulled right into playing.
I want to bring this in though, Dean, because you actually hit on something really valuable for everybody here. It is all about how well you make them feel that, isn't it, Dean? How much more motivated would you be in this scenario after this exact walkthrough to do the things that need to be done than had we not done any of this to set your soul up for this? And that's what I like to call these. These are really meant to put you experientially in this to go, I'm in the right frame of mind to make that decision. Now, it's not meant to scare people. It's just meant to make people think what could actually happen and play through it.
Actually, just to reiterate, Brian and I actually were in a position where we were, and I won't name the hotel, but we were at a hotel for a conference and they were hacked. And one of the things that we both wrote notes on and took away was like exactly how the hotel still handled being operational instead of sending the 5,000 people that were supposed to stay there to go somewhere else. It was like really well done, I thought.
Good operation.
Inconvenient, but like we were able to get in, no problem.
Yeah.
And it's important for your clients to know how they're going to do that, but also for you to know, which is why we talk about
have those stories where you can point to other people doing those things effectively so that they could understand how that would apply to them.
to Amanda's point,
Oh my
that's
God.
I've always, Dean's heard me say this. Every opportunity, every incident is an opportunity for a positive
This is
outcome.
where I get to cut y'all off on purpose. Okay, so when the work involved in an incident, and the whole point of this is to make y'all stressed and not be able to stay on a topic, just like you would be in an incident. Okay, so when the work involved in an incident exceeds your resources, you have to get innovative to be prepared, right? You have to be doing those type of things. Who's ever assisted another MSP? Someone said this earlier, Dean. I think he said, "Hey, man, can I just call my boy down the street or my gal down the street?" Right? And so talk about that a little bit, Dean. Go.
So many moons ago, I'm going to get some hate for this. My original MSP, we were in Robin Robbins, and Robin Robbins had peer groups. And so this small peer group we had of MSPs distributed.
And anytime you get
United
peers
States
together, it's a good thing as long as you're sharing and learning something from it and understand the context of it. So hopefully nobody's giving you hate over that. So, all right.
Real quick, Amanda, you're in a tiny little peer group. You just got announced, added to the board back in May, right? MSP Geek, one of the best peer groups available. Yeah.
So we had a core group of MSPs we trusted. And anytime any situation like this, and maybe not even as bad as this happened, we would lean on each other and say, "Hey, I have such and such going on. Do you have resources you could spare this week if I need them?"
Yeah, that happened actually for
that
the
element.
you're talking about, Matt. Exactly what Dean said. When that happened, the Robin Robbins members that we had one that was part of that. And again, I'm keeping company names out of it. They definitely did that. They were able to rely on and get resources from people within the peer group, the same as what you're saying, because you trust them, you have that relationship, right? It's beyond.
One of the things. Two things I want to call out here, because one of the things that Patrick begs, if you'll pop his comment up for me real quick, please. Do you have a cyber champion program? And this goes back to whoever said put those non-technicals on the phone and things of that nature, but maybe people that can come in and pull the right cord in the right direction, right? Those people that you're pre-training for that. Yeah, so don't forget those resources that are capable and predestined them. The other piece about this is the mutual assistance agreement. And I wanted to touch on this because one of the things we did as a response after our major incident was find other major MSPs and have preset agreements to non-compete, no solicit, but we'll do this at this hourly rate for this much of our bandwidth and capacitance. And a lot of industries can't work that way, but the MSPs do tend to work that way. We, in fact, merged with 3 other peers in our peer group, right? So we became not just operationally similar, but actually the same company. And so ultimately, I think that's a big statement. The other thing I'll meet is that if I had just hired Bob Miller's company to come in and be the hands, just like Bob does now, then I actually would have been paid back for my insurance. My insurance company told me straight up, if you had just paid someone else, you could have been paid. And their statement was, I bet Dean would let me do that and not pay him for 90 days or 60 days or 40 days, whatever Dean could deal with, you'd be willing to float that in that scenario. And that's what we could deal with is maybe some buoyancy and some resiliency and also some of that plays out. So the other thing to mention here while y'all go on is MSP911.org is dead right now, but it is going to a reboot. Myself and Robert Chaffee have spun outside of CompTIA, and CompTIA is going to actually help sponsor the entire thing to give us way more flexibility to help people in an incident like this and create that protection for entities. And so look for more things to come soon around that legal envelope and protection that might exist. So,
you could also use, and I'm not saying this as an outsourcing vendor, you could also use outsourcing vendors to maintain normal business continuity for the stuff that isn't on fire. So that you could focus 100% of your resources on what is on fire.
Well, and even maybe Johnny foreshadowing, these customers might start coming back online and you might have to support them. Anyways, let's not say that happened during this.
But all of this takes preparation, right? To be in the middle of this without having taken any of the steps. You need to, and the advice I give partners who I talk to is you need to pick one thing and do it. You can't, you'll get overwhelmed by trying to boil the ocean, right? And so take that one bite of the elephant, whatever metaphor you want to use, but start taking notes on this. Bob, I mean, I've been impressed to see how you continue to innovate your plans every time basically we run one of these games. You come back with here's something else I can take back. And
okay, I got to assign resources, so I'm cutting this here. University Public Sector and Pioneer Clinic. Do I have more than that? Because I'd like to also do municipal services.
I can put one on Pioneer Clinic. You've got one. I put one on the wellness one that you were working before. Healthcare, National Healthcare and Dynamic Wellness. I put them on there. One each on there, and then I just put one on when you're talking, but we have 2 more. So where do you want?
Universal
those?
public sector, you got one on that?
Universal public sector. No, I don't. But all right. You want 1 or 2?
2. And then municipal services.
Well, if we leave them on universal healthcare and.
Or we're number out?
clinic,
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we're numbered out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys,
Good
you guys are rolling
foreshadowing.
good. No client has fired you guys yet. So
That's
I'm
very
wild.
impressed
This
with
is
that.
ridiculous. This is changing, I think.
Yeah, I think. Well, this is a
They're like,
strategy.
"We got
This is a strategy that I've seen more and more teams play. Is that they at least touch everybody in some way, right? And
That's what I'm
so
trying to do.
Sounds like
doing that, it
Ethan.
lowers the probability of you getting.
The touch.
By the
then
way,
stat.
in real life as
real.
well as this game, it keeps you from being kicked out the door.
We did design that way, right, Ethan? In the very
Right.
beginning, was that you get penalized?
I
heavily
believe we
as the
did.
game plays. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you get the hell hammered out of it.
Yeah.
If
But
you
if
don't
you
touch
think
it.
about
don't
that in
talk
real life,
to
if you go to a
touch the wall.
hospital, they triage everybody. You might
Yes.
be
Yeah.
waiting
That's right.
hours for actual remediation, but you know you've been
That's correct.
seen, and there must be a plan in place, and that can be very powerful.
That's
Yeah.
right. Huge.
It's all about communication.
Raid, we've run out of money yet? Should I like?
Hey, y'all, I got a
No,
client on-
I
one more
confirmed
time,
with
Declan.
MSP Bank. We're good.
Hey, this is Dagley from public sector, and you know we've been down for 11 days. I think we need to discuss our terms of agreements, and I'm at the point that I'm going to fire you.
You know what? I don't even care. Get out of my life. Stop calling me.
You know, that call didn't go to the support desk. We can't count it for the SLA. Sorry.
Wow.
Oh, that's too good. I love you, Degley.
Yeah, that was killer.
That was awesome.
That's the best interrupt we've ever had. Thank you.
all right. Well,
All right.
with
So if third-party resources come in, they've got to be prepared, don't they? They have to have solid procedures, the ability to train, the ability to, oh, wait a minute. If you bring on people, they don't know what they're doing, you're actually maybe doing yourself a disservice, aren't you? So how do you ensure that procedures are documented in your own organization? Somebody touch on that for me.
Ooh, that
We
one's definitely an
so
Amanda.
literally we encountered this. At
Everybody bows to Amanda except for Dean. Here, I just want to know
This
the
is a
dynamics.
question because I was reading something in the chat. I'm terrible.
No worries, go with it, Dean. You heard the question real quick, and then
Well, I
get
was
into-
just gonna say, like this, you do not have to be in an incident situation. Like at Helpt, we encounter this all the time with our clients. They hire us to backstop their service desk, and then none of their tools or documentation is fit for
Yeah.
someone that hasn't worked there
Yep,
for a year
That's right.
to run with.
So-
And they kind of look at us like, "You're gonna fix this, right?"
So, Amanda, the question is, how do you make sure documentation exists so that if you did hire a dean to help out as a bandwidth, how do you do it? Like, how do you make sure it stays up to date?
Well, okay. So we have a training environment internally. I'm actually going to give Ethan a bit of a shout out. We're Huntress partners. One of our people actually has reached out to Huntress, so we've got like the ability now, and if you've seen it in there, to run like incidents as practice using Huntress to be able to practice. So we have a training environment to be able to do those kinds of things to keep people fresh and making sure that they're following the process. I mean, playing games like backdoors and breaches.
And don't forget, Amanda, my context on this is simple restoration of machines, basic procedures you're going to bring someone in to
We have
do.
documentation across the board. But we
That's
also
my
have
point.
training.
How do you encourage that?
Well, we have training. We have like documentation in general is something that's driven a lot by both the technicians and the leadership at our particular MSP. I don't know if that's true for every MSP, but for us it is. We have like approval processes to make sure that it's vetted before.
So you
it
have a
goes
change
in.
management control? Holy hell, listen to
Yes,
this.
we
awesome.
do.
Points for Amanda.
In my documentation system, I want it to be clean. I want it to be
Oh, I love
everything
you.
that exists, right? So that,
So
that,
good.
that we agree with, right? So we have people that are involved in making sure that that happens. And you know, will I say it's perfect? No, but it's a living, breathing thing that we check up on and make sure that we're keeping up to date the way that it needs to be kept up to date.
Yeah,
Everybody's
sounds good.
responsible for making sure that if they see something wrong with it, that they let us know. But also, we have a primary person who's responsible for pretty
We
much
had an
every part of the
FTE.
documentation with the
Yep.
tertiary or secondary and tertiary, and everybody has to be cross-trained on different.
That's awesome.
roles.
That's how we went with it too. Okay, I want to tackle
I
some things while y'all do your thing. I'll try to
And
be
one thing,
quiet.
Matt, what I want to do is one thing. I got to say, anytime we have women in these crews,
They usually run things.
Rule this.
Yeah, I was gonna say they usually run things.
They
That's
rule
good to
this.
know.
I mean, they kill it. They kill it every time.
We have parity in our company. We have a lot of women here, so that might be it might be a reason for us being. So yeah, one of our people is on there. Said what we say: "Who do before you do." That's
our. All right. Okay. Real quick though, back to this point, Harry Torres asked a question of depending on the client type, are there legal challenges bringing in third-party help? Yeah. Great call out, right? If you have regulated industries or industries like ITAR restrictions and you might meet them, but the other party doesn't, or CMMC, CGIS, like there's all kinds of things. Not having a BAA as an extensibility with somebody in medical clients. Yeah, great call out, Harry. Thank you. That's worth. That's one match point, Harry Torres. All right.
This is also one of my favorite injects here.
To get somebody.
Go for it, Josh.
City administration and progressive law.
So this inject now that you're bringing these clients back up to speed and now they're doing their day-to-day operations, they're now calling you saying, hey, my printer doesn't work. Hey, my Outlook profile doesn't work. Hey, I lost this file. I moved this entire file and now it's missing and I need your help on that. So we're losing again.
Where was Steve Spalding with that suggestion of unplugging the phones at the beginning of this?
Right. So this is where I would go to Amanda and I'd ask to consider splitting off teams into the one still handling the incident and one's handling the aftermath of the cleanup stuff.
I would also be looking at some of those because it's really easy to build a triage of sorts, like matrix, and tell those non-technical people to help with the phone calls that are coming in so that we can be triaging what's going on to make sure that we're dealing with the most important things first. And by the way,
can I get a little laminated card that has a paragraph on what every employee should say if asked about what's been going on?
Yeah.
I love all the bring in the admin to help support all that. I also love let's train them before the incident happens.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember that's stressful for them too. Those people that are in
Absolutely.
admin are friends with everybody else in the company, and they're sitting there watching them go through it, going, "How can I help?" Right. So, like making sure that you empower them to do so will actually help with their mental health as well.
I love it, and it's about thinking about your team. Okay,
thinking about that team. Well, the other thing, Matt, is that laminated card, like physical things to touch. People that gives comfort, right? Oh, hold on, I have this thing I can go to.
I am empowered because all I'm allowed to say is what's right here. Right, like it's so very kinesthetically valuable. I think in that regard. Good call out.
Well, and I would also have one that had all my primary contacts.
Oh, Beggs has a one-sheeter, right? So does Dave McKinnon, I think, has a one-sheeter. Like they just have this one-sheeter everybody has, and it's for that purpose. What are you doing? What are we doing? What's my playbook? And actually, I'm going to illustrate that in a workshop I'm doing later this year. Is everybody's going to get a one-sheeter, and we're going to play a role-playing game, a horrible, horrible little role-playing game for 2 days. Okay, so in the process of dealing with this incident, you find out there are 2 businesses using the same infrastructure, right? So in the process of prosecuting or dealing with it, maybe ex post facto. What do you deal with, right? They're sharing the same infrastructure. That never happens. We don't let people do that without a separate legal agreement, right?
I love Jack's response to this. He just shook his head and hung it down.
Yeah, I've been really failing as a tech lead, apparently. Yeah, that's
friends let friends share their exchange server.
Oh Jesus, who just said that out loud? You're out. You're out.
Yeah, that's I mean, if one server goes down and 2 clients are using it, I mean,
good call.
Like the risk and like the reach of that is like it's exponential. You know what I mean?
Well, think about it in terms of this. Think about it in terms of this, right? So you've got endpoint detection or whatever on the machines that you have got an arrangement with an organization with, right? And then if someone's piggybacking on their network, that's transparent to you. They may not have, they don't have any of your tools on it typically, right? Because you don't know they exist. They're just tagged onto there. So from an ability to have an ingress into your network, now you got this whole separate legal entity who's a startup piggybacking on your customers. So the question then is okay, well,
who are they suing? Is it you? Is it them? Right. What was the agreement? What legal did you have with them? Did the MSA protect you in that situation or not? Is there some time for that MSA? Like all of those things become to be a problem. And to Jack's point, it needs to be probably sussed out by that tech lead when it's found that way. but there were a lot of steps that failed to let that happen along the way, right? Like, there was a lot of steps. Okay.
I'm gonna throw another
Go,
inject in
Josh.
here. So Amanda is she's been killing it, but she's also just fed up and can't
She's
deal
highly
with this anymore.
stressed. Yeah.
So she's out. She's gonna go to a concert because she can't just deal with this anymore.
I
so
would go 2.5 mend her right here.
No.
She would have been absolutely in a car wreck. Okay, so you were much nicer to Amanda in her concert. That would have been my car wreck. It's cool. Yeah,
So-
Amanda's got to go.
Thank you.
Brian's gonna take over her spot. Hopefully, he's been.
Sounds
Yikes.
like somebody
Big shoes to fill.
All right, Brian, let's do it, buddy. Amanda,
Thanks,
thank you so
everybody.
much. You crushed it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
All right, let's go.
Now your ringer's gone. I
Your
can't.
ringer's gone.
yeah,
Hell, you're
now-
gonna
now we gotta work.
mess him up, bro.
The smart portion of the event has gone. Like,
That's right.
yeah.
Bob, can you
Uh-oh,
tip that to
look at
Brian?
it. Innovative Financial went back offline.
Oh man, what happened?
shit.
There's no
Amanda,
way.
come back.
There's
Could've-
no way. They want you there right now. You better get there right now. We were up and you let us go back down. Do you even have this solved? What the hell is going on? Get here right now.
Jack, what are we doing?
Well, it forced a technician to go there. So we have no choice, but I mean, obviously we're on our way back down. You know, we still need to continue working to resolve the incident with all of our other clients, but yeah, we do unfortunately lose resources.
Yeah.
Having
What
to
would
do that
happen
there.
if that CEO was maybe your incident commander, Ray?
The CEO of the MSP being the incident commander.
Let's say,
Yeah, if you have a repeat situation, I'm definitely sending somebody executive over there to see what's going on.
What happens to commanding the rest of this outcome with Bryan disappeared and there?
So you need to make up for wherever he was working, assign other
he was
resources.
Incident commander. So what does that mean you need?
Oh, so we're going to assign an incident commander.
Yeah.
Can we get Amanda back? Or
on the way to the concert, unfortunately, Amanda got into a car accident.
Oh, you
and,
did
Oh,
finish it
there.
off,
No.
Josh.
Yeah.
Thank you for 2.5 minning this. That was so good.
Well, the car, it's a modern car. It probably has OnStar. We can still talk to her.
she's on her way to Principal Health Services, which is currently all the way down. So good job, guys.
Yikes.
So,
Had better health insurance.
I think Brian's getting reassigned from board member to incident commander. What do you think,
Yikes.
Brian?
I don't know. A board member, I just usually tell everybody else what to do, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say at some point I'm reaching out to Jack and finding out what's the status, what are the priority lists from his perspective? Are any of the techs burnt out? Who are we gonna?
Sure.
What are our resources? Right, we need to take a pulse check
Well-
because I guarantee you those 7 techs, some of them are burnt out.
Well, and the other thing, honestly, is that especially smaller MSPs fall prey to this, where the CEO takes on that incident commander role, and they really shouldn't. They don't have, because to your point, Ray, of like, hey, this needs executive touch.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much going on for that incident commander. You really probably need to not have the senior leader of your MSP doing that.
I would have a VP of
That's-
operations running an incident.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's who we did. We had VPO was the head of an incident command.
That's one of the things we did when we would back in the MSP days. I noticed pretty early that if I'm sitting there working, because I'm an engineer, so I would do the work myself in the beginning. So while I'm sitting there, you always had that owner, that somebody in the office, always over the shoulder, asking you what you're doing at every step of the way, completely screwing you, like not being able to do your job. So we got in the habit of anytime we sent somebody on site, another executive would go, usually me. Or somebody would go, an account manager, to specifically occupy that person, make it a pleasant visit, let the tech do their job. Here, the exact same thing. Let everybody do their jobs. You need to have some floating people to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into the last little bit of conversation here. When you serve medical clients, there's also additional considerations. This has been brought up a couple times, and a couple people in the audience have been crushing this. But why is a BAA critical to have? Anybody want to tackle that? Why does a business, and this is very U.S. centric, but why is a business associates agreement important?
It delineates who's responsible or what responsibilities there are and notification requirements.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It really does. And, you know, when you have a BAA for every client, do you have to have one for every client you do work with? What if you're like, I don't touch medical data, I'm good. Or do you need to have one with every client?
But you don't really know that you aren't going to be ever.
Oh, look at you, Dean.
Like, what if I go to restore a machine and somebody left patient records up on the screen and I'm the best tech in the world, so I slam that minimize button, but for a millisecond, those photons hit my eyeballs. Like, I just saw privileged information.
Poison photon, PII, and PHI.
I would the thing I would throw in here is that in your MSAs, the way we deal with this, right? Because it's really whoever the healthcare provider is. Typically, this needs to have a BAA. They may or may not need a BAA, but it's their responsibility to get a BAA if there is one necessary. So what we've done in our MSA, I know there's a lot of acronyms. I'm sorry, everybody. Our master services agreement. What we put in there is as part of it, we say, look, if you're required to have a BAA with us, then it's your responsibility to request it. And here's the process for requesting the BAA. That way, they can't come back later and say, oh, well, you didn't. You know, we sent you the BAA. You were supposed to sign it. No, here's the process for sending that to us. We respond in this way. That way it delineates it cleanly, because you don't want to have to, you don't want that discussion to happen after the point.
And we also covered this earlier, but what's your obligation if you know of potential PII loss back in that drive being stolen or lost scenario as an MSP? Just to reinforce it.
And state to state.
I mean, that BA would say what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's likely going to be communication with the end party, by that the customer, the client partner. All right, this might be allegedly in our little game your last day. Let's just say potentially yours to lose or win at this point. And this will be the first game where one thing has not happened, Bob. Interestingly enough, this is the first time nobody's fell for a trap door.
Wow.
Yes, that's good.
Uh-oh.
Very odd.
Great. Now that Amanda's gone, we will.
I would have withheld that.
If it happens now, then yeah, you're right. Amanda being gone would be predicative of what actually changed here. That'd be the deletable variable, in my opinion.
So, Brian, I'm just following Amanda's last commandments. Just to let you know what I'm doing.
I mean, that's probably never a bad thing to do.
Garrett, it could be worse. They could just be selling the MSP to some sucker. Oh.
You have Pioneer Clinic that has 82 workstations down. You have Municipal Services for 44. Universal Public Sector has 72 down. Those are your three top most affected clients.
Yeah, we still have Pioneer Medical too that has quite a significant amount down.
Yeah, Jack, what's going on, dude? You should have cleared all this.
I've been assigning resources. All right, I'm just trying to make sure that we're spread out.
And I would also question.
Up.
I would also want to know why Innovative Financial got hit a second time, if there's any indication.
Who said that?
Well, it didn't say that they were hit. It just
Ray,
said they
another
were
Matt
down.
point, homie. It may matter,
Nice.
right? Like if we're thinking about it, it does matter.
Yeah.
Why repetitive? Why are they down again? What's going on?
Yeah.
You got a CEO there though, so Brian's crushing it. He's gonna get that answer.
Or that's why they went down.
And the tech. Or Amanda leaves and they go down again.
Don't rely on me for IT
This
support.
was actually immediately his fault. Yeah, 100%.
Funny.
It's where I dress pants and dress shirts now. When
Yeah,
you show up,
You
and
gotta
nobody
look
expects
clean
you to get on
whenever
your
you're gonna
knees
get in
and start cleaning.
Oh, it's funny. You know, it's funny. My CEO, when I would go to meetings, I used to have this really long rat goatee, and I would like 340 pounds. Would actually tell them and go, "Hey, let Matt speak 2 sentences before you judge him. Do you mind just letting him give him it?" So I just wasn't going to dress up. I digress.
So one of the things we've done during major instances, we did this during the bandwidth DDoS attacks 2.5 years ago.
Sure.
We would hold regular town halls for our staff or for our partners. At the time to just give them up to date, answer any questions, that kind of thing. It also gives them an opportunity to ask any questions and hear other questions other people may have come up with.
Yep. And it also feels camaraderie. It's somewhat healing. It lets people bitch. There's all the benefits of that, right? I mean, it's hard to control, but definitely valuable, I think.
I picture the scene from The Office where Kelly comes in and she's like, "I have 2 questions. First, how dare you?"
All right. Why is root cause analysis important in this, right? Like, why do we care? Ray, you got the point because you were literally just Johnny foreshadowing. But why? And you're not wrong, Garrett. Berating you in publicly makes the client feel better. Yeah, there's some catharsis to it, right? Absolutely. So why? Garrett explained root cause. All right, good. Why does root cause analysis matter? Somebody?
Well, we definitely
Need to
want
know what you
how
did
it
wrong.
happened,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that we can make sure it's not going to keep rehappening
There you
again.
go. Yeah, that's it, right? And oftentimes we're not doing RCA, but we're doing Band-Aids, right? And in the case of our situation, just to tell the story a little bit, their Kaseya server had an initial vulnerability. The threat actor got in, made an account. In that account, they reused it 2 more times, and the MSP simply restored to backup. They didn't bring in incident response. They were good. They took care of it. There was no such thing as double extortion back then. We've all lived that life. But the point is that then caused them to get hit every time. Instead of saying, maybe something's going on. Maybe someone created an account in our RMM. Why did we get popped twice? They sold the company. We're the suckers. We bought it, and it happened a 3rd time. And so the reality is like, if you're not doing RCA, if you're not doing incident response, if you're not doing those things, back then it sucked. Now you probably will be sued for it. You probably will have to deal with it in a different capacitance than you did 5 years ago or 7 years ago. God, I'm getting old, but you know what I mean, whatever, 5. So that's the point. What are key actions to take based on that to prevent reinfection, right? Like, and I'm looking for something very specific after the incident that I really care about. I want y'all to think about. What's most important after an incident to do?
Debrief.
Sort of like after action report.
Yeah. Who said debrief first and then after action report? Go. Expand on debrief.
Well, with the debrief, it's kind of like asking ourselves, well, how did we initially get taken to task? Like, how did this thing happen?
I love how uncomfortable you are and how much you're moving around your shirt. I just want you to know it's very evident, and I love it. Thank you.
And so, like, once you identified how things went wrong, now you look at it and go back through your incident response planning and say, okay, how can we prevent this from happening again? What are the new controls we can put in place? Is there anything we need to change on how we handled this whole thing from start to finish?
And what I'm looking for there is humility, damn it. We suck. We are humans. We fail. We will fail under pressure more than we will fail not under pressure. Why in the hell would you hold yourself to a different standard just to lie to yourself and get destroyed again? Right. Early on, we had a comment in there from Darren that said, you pay the ransom, then you figure out your problem solved, and you don't follow up, and then it's going to happen again. And that is because we don't want to deal with the fact that we fail. I propose. And so the argument is do a follow-up. Dean, continue on your point. Anything to add to that?
Well, what was the very first thing I asked at the start of this entire exercise that you guys kind of poo-pooed me for asking? Like, how could we possibly be having an incident already? We've put so many controls in place.
Yeah.
And I meant that realistically, that I don't believe you we're having a problem because we've already done so much. I'm not incompetent. And so at the end, it's important to go back and assess you might have done everything reasonable already. And it just was a bad experience. Somebody smarter than you on the other side of the keyboard evaded that. And now and you'll put a new control and you didn't even know you needed.
Right? Grow and learn. And a lot of that also, without getting too intellectual on this, is that most people defend and have never played offense. Most people as MSPs that say they're defending have never gone and learned a single thing about bypass methodologies, SQL injection, or any of those things. And even though I'm a baby in that, like I probably have a few thousand hours of study in it now, I by comparison to a lot, I have enough contextual understanding to go, that's not good. That's not good. We need to deal with that. And that's just missing for a lot of people. And the way they find it, Dean, is by going, I'm not an idiot. I deployed right. Yeah, but you had no idea the breadth of it or the depth of it or the things that needed to be done. And most people don't.
Well, like think about it like in the real world, like if you think like I've got a car, I've protected it, I have insurance, I have a security system, I park it in a secure parking lot, and then someone steals your cat. None of those controls
dealt with cat
somebody from just removing the catalytic.
And they hopefully ransom
of what they're going after. How can you
kid
really
is not making it home today?
I love that Dean famously has his dog Lily, so he uses a cat for this reference.
Oh, he doesn't want to make it too personal, right? He's like, nobody dog naps. Nobody dog naps.
He meant the catalytic converter on the car.
That's what he meant. That's what he meant.
Oh,
he meant his kitty cat. I thought we went down an actual
living cat. I was like, they stole a cat. Who cares?
Tell me you stole telling me you stolen a catalytic converter.
The other thing, I mean, we've all seen the meme where it's like, like, hey, we have all of these things in place: SIEM, XDR, MDR,
Yeah.
ZDR, ABCDD,
And then they'll go through the little
but
hole.
all it takes is somebody somewhere just, oh, I have a UPS package that was delayed. Let me click on this link, and I mean that's literally all it takes. So
I mean, the truth of the matter is 0 days get by all of those, right? I mean, that's the deal. If they modify it enough to where it gets past the threat detection, then it's not in the threat grids that we use to try and block it. So it's going to happen. It's not a question.
I mean, how about I just throw a brick through your window, and I know it takes the cops 5 minutes to get there, so I have 4 minutes and 55 seconds to take what I want. I don't care.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. And I think the point I'd like to stress in this is it's all about detection, right? When we start thinking about this, it's detection and containment. We can deal with the small damage if we have some methodologies of detection and containment. And Dean, to your original point, ideally, we have something went off, something got isolated, we had great operational processes, we made the decisions and moved forward, and now there's not having that impact, right? And I think to your point, that's what I would be incredulous about, is that if I didn't have that. And so here we are now at our, what did we learn today? So each of us, let's go one by one and just say, what did you learn today? Let's just do one thing, one big thing, as Wes Spencer likes to do. What's the one big thing?
I'll start off. I learned that regardless of what you're prepared for, there's going to be some surprises along the way. So build space around that. Because Matt Lee is going to screw you up when you're trying to get this done.
Thanks, I'll wear that hat. All right, Bryan.
Wow. Okay. A couple of things. One, definitely having extracted as much data from our PSA and our RMM as possible so that we have hard copies of documentation on an ongoing basis.
Well secured, well protected, of course.
Shared infrastructure provisions in the MSA. I didn't even think about that. And having a requirement in the MSA that if they have to have that BAA, that they have to request it. Those are my biggest 3 takeaways so far.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jack?
Great.
I'm stealing Dean's lamination.
I'm waiting for the finance request.
Yes, it's absolutely coming in, because it's really important to keep a hard copy of your incident response plan. Like that's whenever everything goes down. I mean, you need to be able to you need to be able to reference it. And so if you don't have access to that,
there's also an insane level of accountability as a manager if you say everybody pull out their SLA cheat sheet and it's a physical object.
Patrick Beggs made the comment also earlier saying an IR plan should be mobile device friendly. But that goes exactly to that, to the lamination thing. You wanted something that you absolutely can read through when you need it.
I'm a fan of lamination. Incident response plans for that reason, that allow you to use an application or a platform that does it. I mean, I'm not pitching for what Bob's building, but ultimately, at the end of the day, having that capability and the things that you do in that is very valuable. So you can just reference that. It's outside of your normal stuff. It's the place you keep those client information up to date. It's the place, and it's a separate land, a land of milk and honey that you live in that's outside the incident. And it goes back to that comms, decisions, all those things that now are not compromised to a threat actor because they're separate. Okay, Dean, what did you learn, buddy?
I significantly underestimated the importance of resourcing in terms of staff. Just watching this and seeing what a struggle it was to decide who needs to do what. And then I'm thinking, not every incident is a security incident. Like, what if it's a hard, what if it's something that literally interrupts
hardware failures?
Power. So that was my biggest takeaway, was like, wow, we got lucky that we had somebody on our team that could manage our resources so effectively. And how screwed would we have been if we did not have an Amanda who was basically being the conductor of where all of our orchestra members went.
She did crush it hardcore.
Yeah.
Straight up. 100%. Okay, Bob or anybody. Bob, you learned something in every one of these. What do you take away from it today, buddy? What was different? I have some thoughts, but what did you take away?
I mean, again, after doing this about a dozen times, it always surprises me when you hear something new, right? So, and really, Amanda, the part that I really took away from it is how important the communications process really is. Again, right? It got reinforced today because if you've been through these, you actually know that the level of confusion that we were experiencing in this little exercise is not too damn far off from what actually goes down when you're trying to pull these off. Right now, that was me 6 months ago. Now, after sitting here and playing this game a dozen times with different people, I feel like I have control over being able to orchestrate that. But in every case, someone brings out a new point about, okay, but I got to remember to communicate with this person a specific way or that person a specific way. And I always go back in my mind and mentally go back over, okay, what do I need to change in my plan to make sure that I accommodate for that particular situation?
One of the things that I go back to just as a young man, and we'll get to this 0 out of 10 score that we're rocking right now. But one of the things that I remember, and it brought up to me now, is when I was going through American Express Financial Advisors as an advisor as a very young man, they talked about personality Z typing. And I'll reference this back to just personality typing, Myers-Briggs, other things that might come to play. But it's probably very helpful to understand how someone behaves under stress, right? In Z typing, it talks about how somebody that's normally assertive might become very quiet under massive stress, right? They might move to okay, anything you want, Dean, whatever. But they might really be secretly grabbing the gun to shoot you. So one of the challenges is, as you're dealing with stress, just try to understand that personality types might be something to have pre-understood, so that you could more predilect where those people would be in that journey during this level of stress.
So I'll jump in on that, because one of the things I wanted to bring up, we always have good conversations about keeping in mind the hearts, minds, and stomachs of your staff as they're going through it. My challenge is, have you included a person in your IR plan that is responsible for that, so that it's actually ahead of time taken care of? You know who they are. They have an allowed budget to help buy lunches or dinners or whatever's needed. Get that planned out ahead of time. Don't just say, oh, by the way, how's everybody doing?
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out too is that those configurations at the top.
Yeah,
we literally got some of the worst draw I've seen. That was a terrible
bad one.
Yeah. That was literally a terrible
the peer
draw.
group would have given you texts. The published SLAs are good. The enforced overtime would have given you text, but would have cost more text. The policy on technical wellness not being there would have cost worse. So, like, you got
also
just
lost text along the way.
That was a very accurate role. I spent a lot of time on Reddit doing operations MSPs, and this describes probably at least 60% of the space.
Oh yeah.
I'm just trying to make you feel better about the 0.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I haven't seen a 0 in a minute. I'm not gonna lie.
This is a whole Facebook group. What are you talking about? Like, I've met all these MSPs.
Yeah, I mean, you also lost a lot of text
on
along
those
the way.
MSPs either, because we've all been there. This is your opportunity to grow, and maybe that's what I'll leave with you on this. Is this cost what, an hour and a half of y'all's time? Yeah. How much can it change the next 6 weeks of your life over some of these conversation points as an MSP, and maybe even when it really happens? So if you're not doing this, if you're out there and you're watching this, or if you've seen it, there's no shame. It's all fun. Come join us. We will not have fun. We have different scenarios coming too that are going to be even worse. Better, even better.
I don't think you're selling this as well as you think you are.
I may not.
Let Bob answer this one.
Yeah, there will be different scenarios. There'll be different scenarios.
But like,
yeah.
Are we looking at this and like, I think we're all in agreement. This MSP is dead in the water. Like, this MSP is not living another 60 days, right? Like, this is a shutdown event.
The other thing that this shows too is there might not be a way to win the game, but how can you fail the least amount, right?
Right. Fail what you're going to be up against.
Yeah. Ethan, why don't you share just for the next play, just a little bit of your strategy that typically plays out for you, even with these worst case scenarios? What's your strategy? Just give it away a little bit.
At some point, part of my strategy is you need to start to save some of those clients. And so they might not be the biggest clients, but starting to save those small clients, those little, pennies, nickels, those add up. And that gets you to a point where you can start to have enough to get on. Now, ideally, you are making it, so my strategy is kind of that: get those smaller clients fully restored so they could be paying you completely, and you get that cash flow coming in, and you have those conversations with those largers like, hey, I'm going to be helping you out, but we've set up ideally processes to, I think it was Dean who talked about early, what are those pen and paper processes people can do? And how have we worked out those business continuity? Because we're talking ransomware, but what happens when a hurricane blows through, right? Or something to that effect that isn't this, or it's a security incident that you just need to take the time to investigate. Like, what I think clients don't always realize, and MSPs do a horrible job for most of them that I've talked to of educating them, is the amount of time it takes to really make sure that a threat actor has been evicted from an environment. Too many times people are like, oh, well, we reset the password on, Matt's email account. There's no business email compromise. No threat actor. Threat actor didn't take over that email. We're fine. Go back. And, you go through. So I think that's the other part, is like having those conversations up front so that you and generate some extra revenue that way. Generate time, set up that business continuity. How do we do it when they keep things offline for a couple hours?
Yeah.
The most least understood component of restoring it, this is just backups, is RTO. Everybody always ignores RTO because we look at what the
100%.
vendor products say. We look at the recovery points. We always forget how long does it actually take if everything works to return functionality.
Assuming you're allowed to, right? Don't forget
Underestimating
about that
RTO
part.
to your clients.
Yeah.
The
And
other
I think it's a good selling strategy.
The other thing that has been rewarded in the past that is not accurately reflected in this game yet, but will be, is sometimes there might be a strategy and reward for getting every client up and a number of machines so that critical people can get to work, right? Sometimes there's that aspect of it that we're not accurately doing, but we will be at some point. So
that was the
I was
thing
thinking
they were
about that
missing
myself.
on every client, that they have critical machines that they have to get up,
100%.
and then there's the pitney bows that can wait. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the
I need
mindset I was
stamps, right?
operating under.
You're right, Jack. You're right.
This goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is ahead of getting in this position. Have you ranked your clients? Have you figured out the rank of restore, but also inside each client? To your point, right? The rank of restore in the client.
Yeah. Dean had brought up, I think, private chat or public chat, but Dean had brought up your ABC clients. We look at it financially, but it absolutely applies here too.
Yeah,
and having those decision points of not only financially, but hey, healthcare and what type of healthcare, right? But what type of
is it cosmetic surgery or
of,
or like heart surgeons or neurosurgeons, right? There's a big difference there, I suppose.
Because cosmetic is first, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've got to get this chin taken care of.
I got to get the Botox. Yeah.
Bro, I Botox my beard.
You add to that ranking besides things like client PETA and stuff like that, like also long-term strategic impact of that client publicly being upset with you. Because sometimes you will, like, you think about like fighting actual forest fires, like sometimes you will sacrifice a portion of trees, which are valuable. I love trees, but because other stuff's more important.
Yep. It's greater good.
That will be part of the game. And if you've already made that decision, that's just easier in the moment to be less emotional.
And that's the point, Dean. I want to hone in on this, because if you've already made the decision and you're wrong versus being wrong while making the decision has a very different impact in what played out, right? Like, it's one thing to plan out extensively and then be wrong. That shows defensibility, that shows prior knowledge and thought, that shows due care, that shows due process, right? Or at least due care, I'm sorry. And so when you think about that, not doing that and being wrong has a very different outcome. And I think that's the argument I want to leave people with in my mind, which is, go ahead and do this and you're probably going to be wrong. We spent $40,000 for someone to come spend 2 days with our executive team and build a big incident response playbook and plan. You know how much that we used? That much. It was useless. It was absolutely useless. And then we learned that and we changed it and we made it useful and we did the things we needed to do. And so the point is like, don't be afraid to go ahead and do it and then learn and move and iterate. You're far worse not doing it, in my opinion.
Well, by the way, this is the place to fail. You know what I mean?
Man.
Be involved in these exercises and bust your ass right here in front of everybody, right? Because in the end, the more you do it, the better you get at it. That's just how.
We could have corked the bat and given them a better draw, though, if we were nice humans, Bob.
There's literally, we have no soul when it comes to that, right? I mean, we keep it's brutal. It can be brutal at times. It's random, and we don't make it easy.
I'd say that's almost the best part of the game, really is. And I mean, you guys have been in the industry, you've done tabletops, you've probably done tactical ones. And I feel that's really what makes IRGame different, is we're tackling the emotions, the heart of it, having these difficult conversations. I mean, at one point when Ray said, hey, the CEO has to go here, and I posed the question of, well, do they really need to? Where do they need to be? And at that point, Ray and Amanda they had to be like, stop and like, wait a second, right? And I feel that, and that's what I really like about the IRGame, is it promotes those tough questions that they don't have a right answer. but it gets you thinking about it, and we need to be thinking about them here and not while this is happening. And that's the beauty of this. So, I mean, I would, if you guys have anything to add to this, is there, if you played a game similar to this, is there things that, you know, if any ideas that you have to give us to make this better?
I would like to see like what some of the, because to me, I'm big on the comms. You know, that's usually where I spend my time. So like, I'd love to see like what kind of comms would actually go out, right? Like, because you got to be very careful how detailed you get and what you promise.
Oh my gosh, you just gave me an idea for a game modification. What if, Bob, and y'all just take this as a note, what if,
what did you do?
when someone has one of these scenarios, we could have a pop-up that makes them choose. It's time for another communication.
Yes.
Which of these three comms is your comm to send out today?
I love
and
that.
just destroy people with the options, and they have
Matt,
to choose the worst option.
Have you been going back and listening to the recordings of the last Friday?
Oh, is this from the last few? Okay, sorry.
You're good. You're good 6 or 8 weeks behind, but you're right on point, brother.
I think it's an excellent point for the next guest. Like, absolutely, for them.
Give them
confirmation, though.
guests,
Great
like
confirmation.
2 minutes before the actual
somebody
thing gets started, to have like a budget they could spend of like points where they could buy, maybe they buy a communication plan, maybe they buy like
that
resource.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. We
that's very
talked
good.
also
By the
about
way,
having.
We have no idea what they're going to get into. But
Oh,
talk
wait.
about having a
typical-
budget showing at the
They could
top.
be Matt points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and something we didn't consider. You have here no enforced overtime policy, but like some of the things we had at the police department. I worked 10 years at the police department. That's where a lot of our IR plans came from. But one of the things we had is we knew we had Alpha Bravo schedule. We were pre-assigned. These people, Alpha would be 24-hour shifts during the event. Bravo would be 24-hour shifts after the event. You're going to have overtime. You're going to have nighttime. Assign these people. Guys and girls, this is going on. I need people for daytime. I need people for nighttime. Let's start splitting this up. And you need management on both shifts. It's not an option. So you don't get to go to bed.
Yeah, one of the original motivations, by the way, for the game was that, you know, I got tired of us not being able to have strategic conversations with our customers, right? Because they were just basically not emotionally engaged in what it is that we just went through, right? So that's always been a problem. So the idea was to build a game that they could take part in, that an MSP could take and run this exercise with their customers. Because if you sit in here as a C-level individual and you play this, you never leave this game the same, right? Because now you can't unlearn what you just learned. You know what I mean? And it changes the dialogue. So that really was the initial motivation to kind of pushing it this way. And it's our intent to have that toolkit available for people to do that, because what's important is that people do think through these damn things, and they do have an IR plan, and they do understand what kind of communications need to be set up ahead of time. And we could go on and on. I mean, we learn so much every time we play this that we could burn 5 hours of just telling you everything that we learned over the last 12 months of playing this thing, because that's how much content is actually involved in doing this.
It's more of a learning game for y'all to speak and learn.
And it's funny because you guys are doing this stuff and like new ideas are coming up in my head. I'm looking at the wellness plan, and we had Amanda checking on the text, making sure they're good. But we have an HR person. I'd rather my HR person do that so Amanda can do the Amanda things.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, and like I look at that, you know, I joke about at OIT, we actually have a therapist on staff. But he's a business coach and also a therapist. But, you know, it strikes me, if I had a therapist on staff, I'd bring him inside. I'd bring him on site for my staff while this is going on. Stress relief.
Yeah, we could talk. That's a whole webinar by itself, Ray, to be honest with you, because it takes that much concentration. Look, I want to, by the way, you probably weren't told this ahead of time because I think we're smart enough to not tell you. But if you played this once, we have the right to drag your ass back up on stage in the first date. So I don't know if you guys really read those terms and conditions. on that
it was
link
really in the T&Cs,
that you clicked
boys
on,
and
but
girls, in the T&Cs.
it says
I just want to call out. I just want to call in the beginning. Bob says, you don't need to be super technical. You don't need to know all this stuff. You'll be fine. And Matt says, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fair.
All right, guys. Well, look,
Thank
you
y'all
know
so
what?
much for playing.
We're a couple hours into this. Look, man, this was great. It was really a joy to have you in this. I'm glad we had a good session and could go through this. And look, we'll take input. Mr. Hohbein is correct. We love input. you guys are always welcome to submit ideas, and we are always building out what we're going to do next. And for people who want to be a part of this, because someone said that, hey, Bob, you should mention, how people can be a part of this. You can go to www.irgame.ai, which is scrolling across the bottom as you see it, or you can certainly watch LinkedIn because we promote everything on LinkedIn when the next sessions are. We do live sessions the last Friday of every month. And it's different than this because you actually play in rooms with teams. So it's a little different kind of a way of working through this, but it's the same process as you see here on the live stream, but much more close, much smaller groups. So anyway, thanks a ton, gentlemen, and Amanda, who rocked it and then left us all wanting. We appreciate you guys.
She's getting some Little John out of this. This is absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like this, seriously.
Yeah, well, and we're here to make it better. So, we'll work every day to try to make it better. So I appreciate you all for being on the stream. And by the way, this was our first time to actually control the live stream ourselves and do all. So we're trying to have about 15 different new things here, and we managed not to kill ourselves. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that we got to do this. But thanks everybody, and you know what? We'll see you next time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks,
Take care, everybody.
Thanks all.
Yeah,
Have a good day.